Chapter 60. The Fall of Plum Blossom Dragon, 3, you are listening at novelfull.audio. The Fall of Plum Blossom Dragon, 3. None of it was welcoming. The sound of rainfall, the moonlight shining down from the night sky above, and the breeze brushing past his hair. Not a single thing was welcoming. The woman asked while the man was trapped in those hazy thoughts, "Are you crying, crying my ass? It's obviously just because of the rain." The man responded rudely, but the hand of the woman reached out to his cheeks. He would normally have slapped the hand away, but this time, he embraced her touch and let her nestle his cheeks. "You really aren't that it looks like you want me to." The man had already gone through too much. He believed that he had nothing left in him that could make him shed tears. Disappointing. The woman's voice held no traces of emotions. And it was the same even when death crawled infinitely closer to her being. The man guessed that the woman had become like this as she had already killed more people than she could hope to count, and, in the process, saw so many visions of death herself. The woman was missing one of her arms and had a huge hole lodged in her chest. The reason why she was still alive when she should have already died was probably because of the level she reached as a martial artist. Even then, she didn't have much time left. "Why did you do this?" The man asked the woman as he couldn't understand her actions a single bit. At the last moment, the sword had been aimed towards the man. And, even though the woman herself could have survived, she threw herself in front of him. The man couldn't understand. No, he just didn't want to understand. He was supposed to be the one that should have been laying on the ground right now. That was what was supposed to happen ever since this bloody war had started. But the woman interfered with the man's destiny. And that roused the man's anger. Yes, it made the man angry. He was sure of it. He told himself that to be the reason for the seething anger burning inside of him right now. The woman slowly touched the man's cheek. The sound of rainfall made the man nauseous. "Don't cry." The man tried to push away the woman's hand. But when he grabbed her frail wrist, he found himself unable to do what he desired. "Don't cry." The woman kept repeating the same line to the desolate man. She kept speaking even though she couldn't see anything as her eyes had long since closed. Was it sympathy? Or was it friendship? He couldn't really understand anything anymore. "I told you I'm not crying. Don't cry." The woman's white, blue-tinted hair started to lose its light as it became drenched in the tumbling rain. Of course, the moonlight that the man hated to his bones, just had to go away the moment he needed its presence the most. "Is the moon still up?" The woman asked the man in a hushed tone. The man looked up to the sky. It was only filled with dark clouds and the constant pouring of the cold rain. The woman loved the moon. She would often look at the moon while sitting on a rock. The man could remember every single time that she gazed up at the moon in a daze. "Yes, it's up there." There was no way the moon was visible with the presence of the dark clouds and the rain blocking it. Both the man and the woman knew. They just acted like they didn't know anything. "Are you next to me?" The woman asked, her voice slowly diminishing to a whisper. The man smiled blankly at her stupid question. "That you're still asking that even though you are touching my cheek?" It almost looked as if the woman smiled a little at the man's words. Did she smile? The man thought that he was just seeing things. "Both of us are here, thank goodness." What is she so relieved for? The man wasn't able to ask her that question. Because those were the last words before she left this world. And then, the man slowly put down the woman's hand. It didn't seem like he could afford to bring her body along with him or bury her. As she probably wouldn't have wanted that, nor could the man afford to do that in his current situation. Found you." The man slowly turned around to the voice he heard from behind him. Tens, or perhaps even hundreds of martial artists were facing against the man. They were people that wore a white uniform with blue accents which had the word "pledge" written on it. In front of all these martial artists stood a very handsome man, and that man pulled out the sword from his scabbard. "Thankfully you couldn't run that far." The man could see the handsome man's will and determination to save the peace of the world. The man had to forcefully suppress the goosebumps he got because of the handsome man's appearance, the meteor sword. The meteor, Zhang Xianjian. He was the man that was called the future of the Orthodox faction. The man slowly called to him. With the man's call, the meteor's eyebrows shook ever so slightly. Then the woman next to the meteor shouted before he could utter anything, "How dare you? Don't you dare put the name of our leader in your filthy demonic mouth." The man didn't respond to her. The rainfall felt much heavier than usual, I keep forgetting. The man rubbed his face in exhaustion. Yes, he kept forgetting. The reason why he was standing in this spot, and the role he had to play in this farce. He just kept forgetting all of it over and over again. The heavenly demon will soon be killed. Just surrender yourself. The man smirked at the meteor's words. He tried to hold it in, but couldn't. In the end, Lord will soon be killed. Who will do that? The heavenly demon is currently fighting against the heavenly venerables. The heavenly venerables. So you left them with the heavenly demon and all of you came here to capture a lowly soldier like me, huh? The man couldn't stop his smile from stretching further along his lips. The meteor's face slowly and gradually morphed into a frown. The man finally managed to stop his chuckling. Right, let's do it already, since if I don't do it seriously, everyone will throw a tantrum again. As the man took a step forward, raging flames of dark fury rose from the soles of his feet and instantly engulfed the entirety of the forest they now occupied. While all the martial artists were getting into their battle stances, the man had his eyes set on the meteor and him only. His emotionless visage returned once more as he spoke to the meteor, "You sick bastard." The meteor's mouth shook slightly at his words, but his face quickly lost visibility as the destructive flames of destruction surged all around the man and the others. The flames that gradually increased in size managed to swallow the entire forest, and in a short span of time, they burned down everything within the radius of a few miles. According to the report of the Murim Alliance, the demonic human had managed to escape. The sole survivor of that incident being the meteor as the others were burnt to ashes. ****** Duel. I coughed at Namgung by Dada's response. The memories that resurfaced out of nowhere and without my control were always the ones that made me feel the most amount of nausea. Why? Why did I suddenly remember that incident? Why now of all times, damn it? I couldn't look at Namgung by Dada's face, so I had to avert my eyes away from her. I felt like I would lose control if I looked at her any longer due to the terrifying memory surfacing once again. Did you not just see I just finished fighting with someone? I had just finished a duel against young Peng. Wasn't Namgung by Dada watching that with the others? Why was she asking for a duel right after that? Following my question, Namgung by Dada's lips formed a pout and she became sulky. For her to make such a face, was very rare. I couldn't even dare to imagine her making such a face in my previous life. Every time something like this happened, I couldn't help but feel that she really was different from the demon sword in my memories, but I still couldn't completely throw away the strange feeling that resided in the corner of my heart whenever I saw her. You've suddenly become so inconsistent with whatever you do, just stick to one thing already, it's annoying me. Your words are becoming harsher and harsher, Elder, humph. Was he mad that a person from his clan got beaten up even though he was the one that wanted me to duel him? Nah, no way was he that narrow-minded, right, you rotten piece of shit. I wasn't wrong, it seems. But I guess he really was from Mount Hua, seeing as he still felt so biased towards the clan. That doesn't matter here. It's the Lord's job to take care of their own children. Then what are you so mad for? I just feel frustrated that he got beaten up even after manifesting the plum blossoms. Back in my days, I wasn't like that. What do you mean, kids these days, sigh. That's not how you use that technique. I just decided to ignore him altogether. Turning my focus to Namgung by Dada, I spoke. Are you like this because you are still sulking about my rejection? Was she being so stubborn because I rejected her duel and accepted young Peng's instead? I guess I was right because Namgung by Dada's eyes flinched slightly when I mentioned that. I'm not sulking. Her voice was shaking a bit too. It looks like you are though. I'm not. Are you sure you aren't? But then why is she avoiding my gaze? Was she always capable of showing so much emotion on her face? Whether it was because she was still young, or perhaps she was originally like this, was something I was unaware of. But I was curious about one thing about Namgung by Dada who kept avoiding eye contact with me. Lady Namgung. Do you like the moon? Namgung by tilted her head at my question. It was understandable because it was a very random question. Maybe she thought about it a little. She answered my question after rolling her eyes. Not really. I smirked at her response. She didn't like the moon, huh? I thought I heard her say that she did like the moon. Maybe she didn't actually say it out loud. I spoke to Namgung by who seemed visibly confused by my mutters. The duel. We can do it next time. Namgung by Dada's eyes widened at my words. Is she that surprised that I said we'd do it next time? You'll duel with me. Only if you speak to me formally. Young master. Never mind, just do whatever you want. I honestly gave up at this point. This habit of hers won't be fixed no matter how hard I tried. I had already used up too much chi and would probably feel tired down to my bones very soon. I did control myself a little, but it was a rough skill that wasn't meant to be used for a long time, and I was sure it would put a toll on my body not long after. I would probably be in pain laying down that I hope you get sleep paralysis. Are you really not going to act your age? How can a ghost pray for a sleep paralysis demon to affect his host, act my age? Why you little brat? I suddenly got a headache because of the constant shouting of the old man inside my head. While I was wrapping my hands around my head, Namgung by came towards me. What's wrong? My head is just. Then Namgung by Dada's hand suddenly touched my cheek. Because of that, the memory from earlier overlapped with what she was saying to me right now. It's burning, don't cry. An ominous feeling crept up immediately as both scenes overlapped, causing me to reflexively slap away Namgung by Dada's hand. Namgung by Dada kept repeatedly looking at her hand, which was slapped away. And my hand, which had slapped her hand away, for some time. I'd accidentally acted too rashly with her. I let out a fake cough and apologized to her for my misconduct. I'm sorry, I was just surprised. You can't even eat the things that are thrown at you for free. Namgung by Dada nodded her head at my apology. It looked like she was saying that she was fine. Then, next time. After muttering those words, Namgung by Dada turned around and walked away. Was it just me or did her footsteps make it seem like she was feeling a bit happy? While I was watching her, Elder Shin asked me a question. You really didn't want to do it, but what made you change your mind? When did I say I didn't want to do it? Up until the point you told her you would duel her next time, and even now, you felt hesitant about the thought. She really seemed like she wanted it so badly, so I just said yes to it, right? Well, if you do get a chance to duel with her, control it this time. Control whatever beast-like skills you use, just be a little more cautious when using your chi. I couldn't really understand Elder Shin's words, but it didn't seem like he was joking anymore that I had to go through the hassle of suppressing the beast because you used so much of your chi. Huh, what did you consume for you to have this horrendous thing inside you? You really want an old man to suffer like this, you little brat? It's not like you're alive anyways, so what are you talking about? Elder Shin rampaged back at my response. I couldn't stop his rampage just by blocking my ears, so it was more than a bit annoying. Regardless, while I'd responded jokingly to him, it seemed like I had a serious problem at my hands. For that thing to go on a rampage when I use a lot of chi. Elder Shin's words were an unwelcome warning. Now that I was able to freely use my power, there was a problem inside me all of a sudden. What could it be? Whether it came from the treasure or was something I had inside my body from the start was something I didn't know. I hope that Elder Shin is lying, but even that, I'm not sure of. Hopefully, I can figure something out when we reach Mount Hua. I felt like I wasn't going to get a solution even if I went to the Mount Hua sect, but I didn't exactly have any other choices. Is this also something I'm going to have to deal with later? Since it's not like I could do anything about it in the middle of a mountain. I let Mount Hua's crew do their business with young Peng and returned to my camp. I felt that something was different as I entered the camp, and thinking about it for a bit, I realized that YCO didn't come running to me anymore. Ha! Did she really go somewhere? It obviously wasn't possible for her to come and greet me all the time, but she always came to me most of the time in these situations, so I couldn't help but feel a bit worried. So, I asked one of the servants. Seol. Was with her grandpa earlier. I felt relieved upon hearing servant's response. There was nothing to worry about when she was with the Sword Emperor. I guess starting tomorrow we will travel with Namgung by. You're lucky she's packing. While I was thinking of what to do, Elder Shin spoke out. Elder Shin, you aren't a Taoist after all, are you, you little brat? How dare you say that to the ancestor of a Taoist clan? No matter how I looked at it, this guy should not have become the lord of the Mount Hua sect. Let alone him becoming the divine sword of Mount Hua on top of that. That would be an embarrassment to the people of the Mount Hua sect that were currently living there as well as the future people of Mount Hua. You know I can hear you, right? Yes, that's why I'm saying it. Don't worry about it, ha ha ha, what a piece of shit you are, indeed. After finishing the duel, the night sky became much darker than before. I had to go to bed as staying up any longer would only make it harder for me tomorrow. I felt a little bad for young Peng since I did go a bit far in the duel. A bit far. You say that now after burning all those flowers away. I felt that he would handle it nicely on his own. If something like this broke him, there was no way he would be able to overcome his wall anyways. I wanted to wash myself as I had sweated a lot during the duel, but I was feeling really lazy, so I just decided to sleep anyways. How filthy of you to sleep in your current state. As always, I ignored Elder Shin's words completely. YCO. Was having a conversation with the Sword Emperor for the first time in a while. Their conversations usually consisted of him narrating tales to YCO. While she attentively listened to them and enjoying every bit of them. While she was about to fall asleep with her eyes half closed, YCO. Suddenly asked the Sword Emperor a question that she had wanted to for a while. Grandpa. What's a fiancé? The Sword Emperor made a strange face following YCO.'s question. He felt a bit embarrassed that although he was lenient with raising her, he hadn't even taught her something as simple as that. He didn't know why she was randomly asking such a question, but he just thought that it was just another one of her random questions and nothing else. She was curious about many things, such as what an eagle would taste like, or a hawk. So Sword Emperor just took the question lightly and responded as such to YCO.A. A fiancé is, yeah. YCO.A's expression became darker and darker as she listened to the Sword Emperor's explanation. But the Sword Emperor didn't notice her expression and continued to explain to YCO.A about her question. The next day, YCO.A stopped talking to Namgung by .A. Chapter 61. The Fall of Plum Blossom Dragon. 4. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Fall of Plum Blossom Dragon. 4. Crunch. I stepped hard onto the grass-covered ground with my feet. Slowly, I focused my strength on my lower limbs. Starting from the soles of my feet, trailing upwards to my ankles, then legs, thighs, and finally my hips. I gradually gave strength to each and every part of my lower extremities. Whether it may be a sword wielder, a fist fighter, or even an archer, for that matter, focusing all your might on one's lower extremities was the most important aspect of martial arts. After all, it was the very core of a martial artist. Satisfied with prepping up my lower body, slowly, I mustered up my chi, swish. Flames arose from the ground up, flowing upwards along my body. When the unruly flames showed signs of going wild, forcefully, I suppressed the wild nature of raucous flames. Too much power might as well be an unnecessary amount of power that was better of not existing at all. Slowly, I invoked the flame arts to flow inside my body. Corresponding to my invocation, a seething ring of fire formed around my body. Not yet. Paying heed to Elder Shin's words, I brought forth even more chi out of my body, increasing the rotation speed of the flame ring, as a result. Whoosh! I felt my chi leaving my body at a rapid rate. However, I also felt the ring of fire getting hotter accordingly. Not yet. Although the fire surrounding me was becoming progressively stronger, I also had to pay heed to control the intensity of the fire so that the space surrounding me doesn't get destroyed in the process. I was sure that training this way would help me to control my flames, whether to just adjust the intensity or even put it out if need be, in a real fight. After using my chi in this way for a while, the chi flowing inside me tapped somewhere inside my body. It was near the place where my heart was located. I reached it already. I was also dumbfounded by this realization. Destructive martial arts were able to generate explosive amounts of power, but as a caveat, reaching even the boundary of the next realm was much harder. If I hadn't absorbed all that power from the treasure of the Mount Hua sect, I was sure it would have been impossible for me to reach the fourth realm of flame arts due to that trait. However, my chi had already reached my heart. Not that. I nodded to Elder Shin's words. I just did what he told me to do. I couldn't be reckless and impatiently try to open it yet. I heard Elder Shin smirking as he was equally dumbfounded as me at seeing me reach this state. Truly, for your chi to reach the heart already. Such monstrous talent is enough to give me goosebumps all over. Talent. In Elder Shin's eyes, my current state might seem possible due to my talent, but only I knew that what I achieved was possible only due to the experiences of my past life. In order for martial artists to reach the peak realm, they needed to open their hearts so that chi may flow within and subsequently be able to sense the chi that flowed within their hearts. They won't be able to open their hearts up if they lacked the amount of chi needed for that step, and even if they were lucky enough to open their hearts to let the chi flow within, if they were unable to withstand the feeling of the chi within their hearts, then it would only lead to their body exploding due to the backlash. Hence, even if one were to be prepared for the procedure, they first needed to have the chi reserves necessary to proceed to the next step. On the other hand, if they had the chi reserves necessary for the next step, they needed to become mentally prepared for what was to come. Phew, the flame rings surrounding me had now reached the level that I had used during my duel against Young Peng last night. The start of the fourth realm. At this point it was hard for me to control the intensity of my heat to a degree that it doesn't damage the area surrounding me. As I began to wonder how long I needed to keep this up, stop. I retrieved all the chi back to my body at Elder Shin's signal. I stopped my chi flow, but due to the remnant heat of the flame chi, steam began to leak out of my body. How is it? This is your limit for now. This much, huh? What am I doing, you wonder? I was testing the amount of chi in my body that I could tap into, since Elder Shin informed me that there was something in my body that kept rampaging whenever I expended vast quantities of my chi. From what I could see, I was only able to use the chi that I could gather in my arms, but any more than that would be too much for me for now. No matter how much I thought about it, I couldn't find a solution to this problem. Will I be able to find a solution after reaching the Mount Hua sect? I wasn't really sure about that. But it wasn't like I had any other choices left for me now, was it? So, I just had to reach that place and see for myself. You still have so much worry for no reason, just go there and see if you can find something to tackle this. Elder Shin was right. I knew that just worrying about it wouldn't solve a thing. It was just an old habit of mine to overthink things, due to all the messes I would run into wherever I went. I brushed away the dust covering my clothes and thought about doing some light training. However, I felt a presence coming from behind me at that moment. I checked to see who it was and thankfully it was a familiar face. "Young master, did you have a good night's sleep?" It was young Peng, coming from behind with a refreshing smile etched on his face. "Whoa!" exclaimed Elder Shin in surprise. My reaction was no different from his. I had thought that perhaps he would be unable to overcome the loss he faced last night. However, young Peng was feeling comfortable enough to greet me as though nothing had happened between us last night. Did he overcome the feeling of defeat already? Or did he not care about it in the first place? What do you think? I couldn't help but put on a sour expression on my face at Elder Shin's rhetorical question. He and I both knew the answer already. Young Peng had already finished organizing his thoughts in just one night. It didn't seem like he had figured everything out, but I could feel that both his aura and expression had become much more serene than before. This is why I dislike geniuses. I hate every single one of them without exception. Whether he knew about my thoughts or not, young Peng just bowed his head toward me. "Master Young Peng. Thank you." "What do you mean all of a sudden?" He could only give a somewhat awkward smile at that question. "I already know that you tried to give me a lesson even though I don't know what I did to deserve it." "Whoa. Whoa. I'd prefer it if you could just stay quiet right now." My sour expression was about to turn into a frown at this point. "Young master." Confused at the change in my expression, young Peng called out to me, but I wasn't feeling much better. To be honest, I did try to help him out, but I didn't expect him to change this much in just the span of one night. Moreover, he had no hesitation whatsoever in bowing his head down to a person younger than him. Also, the sincerity I could feel in his feelings of gratitude toward me only made things more uncomfortable for me. Of course, there was still no guarantee that young Peng will be able to overcome the wall he would face in the future just because of this one enlightenment, but he certainly had a higher chance of passing it than before. I was sure of that fact. My stomach ached. It ached a lot. Someone here is working their ass off day and night, trying to earn it after having died once. But this guy here chances upon an awakening just because he was beaten up in a duel. And in just one night at that. I couldn't help but get angry inside. "Kid. Yes. You seem really hollow inside, so you should stop. TSK. I spoke to young Peng, burying my inner thoughts. "That wasn't my intention, but I'm glad that you got something out of it." Young Peng smiled back at my words. If Nangung Chanjin gave off a dark aura, making me feel goosebumps all over, then the aura surrounding young Peng could only be described as refreshing. Not only does he have talent, but he also has the looks and a good personality as well. Yeah, I definitely don't like this dude. Wow. I embarrassingly thought that I was the greatest prodigy in the world, but after a duel with you, I was able to realize that the world is bigger than I thought. Young Peng wasn't exactly wrong. Gu Huibi is called the greatest prodigy of the current times, but since there was an age gap between them, it was understandable why young Peng thought that he was the greatest instead. You have probably put in so much effort that I can't even imagine it. He, for some reason, came to a weird conclusion of his own. I, however, wasn't in a position to say anything in that regard. I can't just say that it was all thanks to my regression now, can I? So I just let him think whatever he wanted. I can't just thank you with words. So if you have any request you can make of me, I will do anything to fulfill it. A request. Something I could request from Mount Hua Sect's greatest prodigy, the Sword Dragon. One thing came to mind at young Peng's offer. I happened to have something I needed to ask of him, so this was good timing. "Oh, then Master Young Peng, can I ask you something?" "Oh. Sure, you can ask me anything." "Anything besides the sect's art?" "No, it's nothing that big, the clan's art my ass. Where would I even use a useless thing like that?" "Useless. You little brat. The sword of Mount Hua is." "Master Young Peng, I wanted to ask, yes. Which generation is the current lord of your sect from?" "Ha. Ha! I was curious about that. I remembered Elder Shin asking me about the generation the current Lord of Mount Hua belonged to. I forgot about it since I didn't have the chance to just grab someone and ask them directly, but since I was given the chance. Pardon. Young Peng acted as though something broke inside of him. He reiterated the question, making sure that he didn't mishear anything. That's your request. Yeah, it is. Oh. Young Peng made a hollow face as if his soul had escaped out of his body. What's with him? Isn't this an easy request? Did I ask something weird? I asked Elder Shin since Young Peng was looking rather strange right now. After a long silence, Elder Shin finally replied. Don't talk to me since you are embarrassing me. What, why? In the end, Young Peng fulfilled my request, although he did so with a dumbfounded expression on his face. The current lord was from the 16th generation. And Young Peng also mentioned that he wasn't going to count this as a request and urged me to ask anything the next time. I readily agreed as that was a plus for me. If I had to list one thing that bothered me after finishing the duel with the sword dragon, it would be the gazes full of intrigue I was drawing from the crew members from the Mount Hua sect. Sure, before becoming the sword dragon, Young Peng was still an inexperienced martial artist. However, that didn't negate the fact that he was still a plum blossom swordsman. However, he was still beaten to a pulp and lost in the duel against me. A boy who still had so much room to grow. I had already expected this to happen, but their gazes were more intense than I had expected them to be. Young Peng was brought to the ground. By that boy. I still can't believe it myself. He was completely destroyed in their duel. I heard he broke his arm. I believe he also broke his legs as well. But I saw Young Peng walking just fine earlier. Then never mind. You didn't watch the fight, did you? Weird rumors began to circulate, but I believed that they would soon fade away as it was merely a simple spar. Nothing more. I think. I was told that we would start making our way toward Shangxi again after we finished having lunch. Thanks to that, I had a good amount of time to test a few things out, so it wasn't all bad. I saw the servants of the Gu clan preparing our meal from far away. Since it was going to be a long trip, they didn't prepare anything grandiose. However, as long as it was enough to fill my stomach, I didn't care about anything else. Ha! But as I got closer and closer, I felt something strange. I could see Namgung Bai naturally fit herself into our crew. And I could see why Seol nibbling on some food while sitting next to her. I understood that there were times when she would be eating ahead of me like that, but that wasn't the important part here. The most important and astonishing thing was the fact that why Seol was nibbling on her food. Is she sick? Is she feeling super sick or something? Namgung Bai also gazed at her with quivering eyes since she also noticed something weird about her. But she wasn't really able to speak to her, so she continued eating quietly. When Namgung Bai's chopsticks were about to grab one of the foods, why Seol would snatch it away out of nowhere. Perhaps she isn't feeling sick, after all. I was thankful for that, but it still didn't change the problem that whenever Namgung Bai tried to grab something to eat, why Seol would just snatch it away from her. After the same thing being repeated for some time, a question mark appeared on top of Namgung Bai's head. She tilted her head, wondering what this kid was up to. Namgung Bai just stood still, thinking for a bit before nodding her head. Then, she grabbed the food in front with her chopsticks at an instantaneous speed. Why Seol was too late to act this time. She looked utterly shocked at the fact that she wasn't able to steal her food. However, Namgung Bai just brought the food she had grabbed toward Wai Seol's mouth instead of eating it herself. You want to eat it? No matter how I looked at it, it doesn't seem like she's acting this way because she wants to eat it, though. Namgung Bai didn't seem to have any thoughts about Wai Seol's actions. Seeing her act like this, YCOL started to tear up. Why you are so dumb? Sis. After shouting that line, she ran off somewhere. But she couldn't go far as she was caught by Honghua saying that she needed to do the laundry. Ha! I felt like I just saw a scene straight out of a drama. While still holding the chopsticks in that position, Namgung Bai glanced in the direction YCOL ran toward before turning her head in my direction. It looked like she wanted me to explain just what happened here, but it's not like I knew anything either. Don't look at me like that, I don't know what happened either. I thought long and hard about why she acted like that, but nothing came to mind. Oh, maybe, puberty. Sigh, you idiot. I heard Elder Shin's voice dissing me in my head, but I just ignored it as I was used to it already. Later, when we were on our way to Shangxi, it became a bit of a hassle to deal with YCOL as she was sticking closer to me than usual, for some reason. But I had to stay quiet because I felt like she would actually become mad at me if I pushed her away today. Chapter 62. Not yours, 1, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Not yours, 1. 1 month. The amount of time that had passed since we left the Gu clan for Shangxi. We stopped by a few towns from time to time, to restock our inventory, and also ran into some demon gates along the way. However, it was a peaceful trip without any casualties or injuries. It would have honestly been weirder for us to stumble upon any problems or accidents with people like the escorts of the Gu clan or the swordsmen of the Mount Hua sect traveling with us. As we had been traveling for a long time already, I got some time to train my body and think many things through. I was still feeling bored since we still had quite a bit of distance to cover even after traveling for tens of days already. However, if I had to list one thing that was different from the beginning of this trip, then it would be the fact that my biggest concern wasn't the boredom that I had to constantly deal with while waiting to arrive in Mount Hua anymore. Although still concerning, Namgung Bai joining our crew out of the blue wasn't really it, nor was the cumbersome situation of YCOL becoming sulky at random. Young Master. I didn't know if I had mentioned it already or not, but I remember stating that young Peng was quite a talkative fellow. Let me rephrase that statement. Wouldn't like to have a leg day today. This guy didn't just like to chatter, he did on a completely abnormal scale. The Mount Hua sect, they were one of the most prestigious sects of the martial world, renowned for being proficient with swords and their sword arts. Still, there were numerous other clans that specialized in the usage of the sword. However, the reason behind Mount Hua's superiority over other similar clans was the inclusion of the divine sword of Mount Hua, and the current lord of the clan, the celestial plum blossom, in their ranks. Ahem. Elder Shin coughed in embarrassment at that statement. I didn't really want to admit this fact, but that was just what the undeniable reality was. In the past, the divine sword proved this fact by playing a huge role in the events of the blood disaster. And the same went for the celestial plum blossom of the Mount Hua sect, who fought countless people of the unorthodox factions in his prime. The greatest swordsman of contemporary times was none other than the Sword Emperor himself. However, the celestial plum blossom was still talked about in the same breath as him due to his skills that were comparable to the Sword Emperor. In my honest opinion, perhaps, he was not the best fit to be the lord of the clan, but there was undeniably the possibility for him to rival the heavenly venerables in might as a martial artist, finally showing some common sense. How astounding. I really didn't like the voice that was rattling on in my head. Anyways, the point is, not only did the Mount Hua sect have a very powerful leader, but they also had something else that symbolized the core of their clan. The Plum Blossom Sword Art. Out of all the sword arts in the world, it is often said that the Plum Blossom Sword Art, along with the Sword Emperor's Moonlight Dance, was the most beautiful and mesmerizing sword art known to ever exist in the martial world. However, the Sword Emperor's art was created by him, so it didn't possess the sheer amount of history the sword arts of Mount Hua had. The sword art of the Mount Hua sect was used by the countless people that were part of the sect through the long history of the clan and was, in essence, able to evolve and progress along with them. I saw a glimpse of that phenomenon in my duel against the dragon sword. The blooming plum blossoms that flew around young Peng, as he used his sword, weren't moving because of the wind, but due to his chi flow and manipulation of the art. That meant that these blossoming flowers moved according to the user's will. And Mount Hua's swordplay held its beauty in the midst of those blossoming plum flowers. The elegant movements embedded into Mount Hua's swordplay not only held sharpness but also a sense of unrivaled focus. It wasn't exactly called a top-tier sword art and simultaneously a difficult martial art to learn for no reason, after all. Since, not only did the martial artist need to focus on the flow of the plum blossoms, but they also needed to pay heed to the sword dance itself. I expected that the mastery of the art needed an immense amount of training as it was a very difficult martial art to learn. I don't know if it's because of my lack of training, but I feel like my chest got a bit smaller. Senior, please stop showing off your chest while saying that. It's really disgusting. How about you wear some clothes as well? Others are looking away from you because of how disgusting your body looks. They are just a bit embarrassed, that's all. Hey, that's what you call bullshit. Every single time I looked at these madmen, they almost scared me to death. I understood that the physique of the members of the Gu clan wasn't the biggest out there, but the people of the Mount Hua sect had biceps that were at least the size of a man's thighs. I thought that their clan was supposed to symbolize beauty. But then what the hell is this? Looks good. That's what a martial artist should look like. It's definitely because of this rotten old man. After all, the older generation was the foundation of the newer one in the first place. So, how could the current generation be fine when the roots were flawed, to begin with? Elder Shin, you forgot the fact that you were a Taoist, right? That I can't believe I'm hearing such absurd things right now. How dare you say that to the leader of a Taoist clan? Well, you are not the Lord anymore now, are you? I could almost hear Elder Shin say, "That's true," in a melancholic tone. I kinda felt sorry as what I said was nothing short of a punch to the guts. Thinking back to the times I spent with young Peng for the past 10 days, this guy wasn't really a normal guy either. Your physical training must differ from mine, right? I'm quite interested in that, so if it isn't a bother to you then, how about we? No, it is indeed bothersome. I think that this aberration started just after the day of the duel. All of a sudden, this guy, no, this muscle-headed maniac appeared out of who knows where with a boulder, the literal size of a fucking carriage, on his back. So how the hell was I not supposed to be shocked? Why are you holding that, Master Young Peng? Oh, there wasn't anything else I could use to train with, so I picked it up from somewhere nearby. Can you really just say, picked it up, with a boulder such as that? Ah, I see. Oh, perhaps you are interested in it, sir. I think I saw another one back there, so I'll bring. No. Not interested. He's really gonna train with that. Does he train like that every single day? And here I thought that I had been training quite hard after my resurrection. But compared to the training young Peng did, I felt that mine was similar to doing nothing at all. Not that it made me want to copy his training methods though. Master Young Peng, you use your chi in tandem with your strength to train with that boulder, right? Huh. Why would I use my chi for physical training? Ah, right. I asked a rather obvious question, didn't I? So you're telling me that he doesn't even use his chi when training with that thing? It was nothing short of amazing that he was able to withstand such an intense training regime. And what was equally amazing, or rather shocking, was how these muscular people were able to display such beautiful sword art. Young Peng was still young, so he didn't seem to have that disadvantage yet, but it was a known fact that big and muscular bodies got in the way of aiming for flexible movements in the usage of a sword. This principle also applied to other fighting styles and not just swords. Too much training actually became poison for many. Everything goes along naturally. What do you mean? The physique of a martial artist corresponds to the martial art styles they use. Yes, I am aware of that. A martial artist's physique changed depending on the type of martial art they learned and trained themselves with. For example, the reason why the martial artists of the Peng clan have humongous physiques was because it was the prerequisite for them to delve into the arts of their clan. This pretty much made Peng Wujin really special among the Pengs, as he has the body of a prince in his youth while the other people of his clan retain their characteristic burly physique. As a martial artist of the Mount Hua sect, it is very important for them to have a vigorous self-training regimen that serves as the foundation for their future. Self-training, huh? Right. All of it is to ensure that the tree can grow firmly, and can bloom more beautiful plum blossoms. Do their monstrous bodies also relate with that? That's just part of the process. The first generation students of the Mount Hua sect or the elders of the clan would know because they went through the same thing. My past memories of the celestial plum blossom were blurry at best, but I was certain that he didn't have such a monstrous physique. Instead, his physique was quite similar to the Sword Emperor's. So does that mean that one's body changes back to normal in the end? The point where a martial artist's chi reaches the confines of their hearts in order to overcome the wall to the next stage, I think that's when they start to change as they go beyond the peak realm. Was this also just the adaptation of their realm? Since their body changes when they go beyond the peak realm of being a martial artist. While I was still wondering about that phenomenon, Elder Shin spoke up. No need to think about it in such a complicated manner. Their bodies are just corresponding to their changing chi, that's all. Is it really alright for you to tell an outsider about such a secret? Not like you're gonna do anything with it, in the end, so who cares? That's true. So, long story short, after laying a foundation for the body to work around with, their physique changes accordingly once they achieve the awakening state. I idly wondered just what kind of art this clan wielded that allowed its users to attain such drastic changes in their bodies. However, I couldn't really afford to think about another clan's arts right now as I had a beast in my body that I had to worry about. Then let us train together next time. Yes. I did say yes, but I had no intention of doing that. How am I supposed to do that anyways? I was planning to finish my light training and then return to the carriage once young Peng left. However, at that moment, I saw someone peeking at me from behind a tree. The person had a small head, and large round eyes which were directed toward me. It was none other than Seol. Secretly peeking at me in a bizarre fashion. When our eyes met, she got startled and proceeded to hide behind the tree. However, she wasn't able to fully hide as I could clearly see her hair sticking out. What the, is she trying to hide or something? That little girl's shenanigans are pretty cute. When I walked towards her, with the intention of seeing just what she was up to, I was met with the sight of her back facing me as she fidgeted with her hands. What are you doing? I could see her back flinch at my call. I wasn't able to see her face, but it was fairly obvious that she was thinking something along the lines of, how did he know I was here, in that head of hers? What are you doing here? After calling her for the second time, slowly, Seol turned toward me. She was avoiding my gaze and I could see that her lips were still curved into a sulky pout. However, she still brought a bottle of water and a dry towel with her. I smiled upon seeing that act of hers. I thought that I had done something wrong to her which made her not talk to me for the past few days. However, seeing her bringing all these items with her while she was still feeling sulky was a really cute sight indeed. So even you can say the word cute, huh? You think I'm apathetic or something? That I did think that you were like that. Just a little bit, though. This old man. Are you not going to reply? No. She didn't speak anything after that, probably because she was still feeling sulky. However, she still made sure to carefully hand over the things she brought with her to me. I drank the cold water she had brought for me. Sweat wasn't much of a concern for me since I could just dry it with my flame chi, but I still pretended to wipe out the sweat with my towel, at least. I patted Seol's head as she stole frequent glances at me. She tried hard to retain her sulky expression, but, in the end, she wasn't able to help herself and made a brighter face. Every time I looked at her, doing such things, my chest felt tingly all over. That's called having a crush on someone. A crush. Me. I retracted the hand that was gently patting her small head. YCOL.A looked at me with a disappointed face, but I ignored that. Did you eat anything? I tried to have a light conversation with her, as I couldn't talk to her for a few days since I thought the mood wasn't right. Yes. Still giving me a cold answer, huh? But I didn't give up and continued to chat with her. What did you eat? Fish. Meat. Vegetables, the potatoes Honghua sis brought me, right? Seems like you are eating healthily, at least. Seems like her appetite doesn't change with her emotions. After chatting with her some more, her sulky lips went away and her sights that used to be on the trees and the grass were now aimed toward me once more. She also had a slight smile on her face. Of course, her expressions weren't completely back to normal, but this much was enough. Right. Let's go, we need to start on our journey again. Yes. I gave back the water bottle and the towel to YCOL.A and just like that we made our way back to the carriage. While Gu Yangchen was going through the forest to go back to the carriages, YCOL.A stopped for a bit and gazed at his advancing figure. Now left alone on the spot, YCOL.A used her hands to pat her own head. She felt like the sensation of Gu Yangchen's warm hands was still present on her head. Oh, Lady Y, Eddie E.T. She turned around at the voice that came from behind her. The owner of that voice was young Peng, who was covered in sweat after he was done with his rigorous training. He smiled brightly as he noticed the stuff in YCOL.A's hand. Oh, I was feeling thirsty, so can I drink this? YCOL.A silently looked at young Peng for a bit, and then responded. No, this is for young master. Young Peng couldn't help but pause for a split moment at that cold response. Oh. It's for young Master Gu. Then I assume you waited until young Master Gu finished his training, huh? That's good. After saying those words, young Peng tried to pat YCOL.A's head. However, she dodged his hand and then backed away from him. Due to her sudden action, young Peng's hand was left awkwardly hanging in the air. I'll be going now. After speaking those words, YCOL.A bowed her head and proceeded to hop away toward the path Gu Yangchen went. Young Peng scratched his cheek after being left alone like that. Was she always like that? She was always happy and had a bright smile on her face whenever she was around young Master Gu. But the YCOL.A young Peng just met and interacted with was so cold that it left him utterly dumbfounded. Plus, it felt like someone was watching him, for some reason. Probably just a mistake. That's what young Peng thought in his mind. It was around the time when the summer heat was at its peak. The carriage that was slowly moving through the roads finally came to a stop. In the middle of the rowdy crowd, Namgung Bai.A came out from the carriage while wearing some sort of cover on her face. I assumed that she wore something to cover herself because of all the attraction she always garnered no matter where she went. When I looked up, the sight of a staggeringly tall mountain greeted my eyes. Mount Hua is still the same as ever. I can already feel the majesty and sense of justice it naturally emanates. While Elder Shin was becoming increasingly sentimental with his words, I just nodded my head and lightly responded to him. Yes, it's disgustingly huge. Mount Hua. We had finally arrived at the place that held a significant place in my heart, in more than one way. Chapter 63. Not yours, too. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Not yours, too. Having arrived in Huayin City where Mount Hua is located, I more or less expected us to immediately climb the great mountain to reach the sect. However, it was already nightfall by the time we reached the vicinity of the mountain, so, we had no choice but to find a place to stay the night. Thanks to Huayin being the center of Mount Hua, there were many people from Mount Hua who welcomed us with open arms. We were easily able to find lodgings thanks to that too. After Xinhian's crew helped us in finding a place to stay the night, he left for the Mount Hua sect, leaving some second-generation students behind to accompany us, informing us that he would return tomorrow to take us with him. Just in case, I asked if it would be better for us to climb the mountain now since we could deliver the treasure sooner. However, he replied that the current arrangement was safer for us. I didn't really understand what he meant by those words, but I just decided to follow his instructions nevertheless. To begin with, I was feeling quite a bit exhausted and didn't feel like climbing the huge mountain. So, I just kept my mouth shut. Here are your dumplings. After waiting for a bit at the dining table, the food we had ordered came in one after another. Without any hesitation whatsoever, I filled my stomach to the brim with the food that was served. As I was quite literally stuffing myself with dumplings at a crazy speed, YC sitting beside me, passed over a cup of water toward me. She was really trying her best for the past few days. Thanks, but you should eat some too. I'm full. As I was looking at YC with clear doubt on my face, she puffed her cheeks in anger. The appearance she made was really, really funny, and just as I pressed those bulging cheeks of hers with my hands, it made a funny sound. That whole scene was so funny that it made me laugh out loud. However, YC instantly became sulky due to that act of mine. Why? You. Sorry, I won't do it again. That was a lie. I'm definitely going to do it again, it's just so funny. While I was teasing YC like that, someone sat next to me with their food. It was none other than young Peng, who had come to the table while holding a bowl of noodles in his hands. I'm disappointed in myself. I should have recommended a more delicious restaurant to you, sir. Is he referring to the best dumpling restaurant in all of Shaanxi that he had mentioned before? That honestly was a little bit disappointing, but I didn't really care, to be honest, as long as I was able to finish the work I had come here to do as fast as possible. Is it fine for you to not go with them? While Xinhyun and the others departed for the Mount Hua sect, young Peng was left behind to stay here with us. I thought that maybe it was because of the treasure I had with me, but the more I thought about it the less likely that seemed to be the reason he was told to stay here. It's not a problem, young Peng seemed to be disappointed for some reason. I didn't feel like asking about the reason behind that expression, so I ignored it altogether. When I glanced toward YC having filled my stomach already, I saw her shoving more and more food in her mouth. Then, as Namgung Bai Dada placed some food on her plate, YC just made a humph sound. This scene had been recurring for the past few days. The problem with all of this was that, after behaving with Namgung Bai Dada like that, YC would always feel guilty for her actions. Then why is she doing it in the first place? YC always acted like she didn't want the food Namgung Bai Dada gave her, but moments later, she would eat it nonetheless. It was like looking at a bird that was indecisive and didn't know what or how to act. It seemed she was trying her best to pretend that she didn't like Namgung Bai. However, seemingly due to being so young, she wasn't very good at doing that. Isn't it rather cute, for it to be so blatantly noticeable? After watching her for a while, wondering why she was acting like that with Namgung Bai Dada, I placed my hand on YC head subconsciously. That was a lie. I just wanted to pat her head right now. When I placed my hand on her small and round head, YC body flinched instantly. Immediately, I tried to take my hand away from her head as I thought she didn't like me touching her like that. Grab. However, YC grabbed my hand before I could take it away. This means she wants me to pat her more, right? I kept patting her head like that, thinking that she didn't hate my touch. As I brushed her smooth silky hair, I could see that YC lips curled into a smile. That I guess you are a man, after all. What are you saying all of a sudden? Are you just pretending to not know? Your heart is being pretty honest though. After hearing Elder Shin's words, I tried focusing on the state of my heart and I realized that it was actually beating noticeably faster than usual. Did my body and head have their separate minds or something? I ignored that nonsensical thought and continued brushing her soft hair. Soon, however, I felt someone's gaze on me. Ha! Sitting next to YCOL.A, I could see Namgung by.A leaning her head toward me while staring at me with a blank gaze. Specifically, her gaze was directed toward the hand I was patting YCOL.A's head with. Why are you staring at me so intently? Namgung by.A didn't respond to my question. Her gaze simply never shifted from my hands as though she was in a trance. That gaze of hers felt really uncomfortable. Slowly, I saw Namgung by.A gazing downwards. And after her eyes were now fixed on the floor below, the top of her head was facing toward me as a result. Whoa. For reasons unknown, Elder Shin looked quite surprised by her actions. What are you? Then the thought that maybe she was telling me to pat her head came to mind. That I told myself that there was no way that was the case, but I found no other reason for her to act like that. Nah, no way. However, to be sure, I took my hand away from YCOL.A's head and reached toward Namgung by.A to confirm my guess. I hesitated to do something like that to her, but I still wanted to make sure if my guess was right or not. Ah, YCOL.A leaked a disappointed sound from her mouth. When my hand was just about to touch Namgung by.A's head, someone is on the second floor. I heard the footsteps of some people coming from the staircase. They were climbing up the stairs to the floor we were on. This voice is, Young Peng, sitting next to me, started trembling when he heard that voice. I retracted my hand as soon as I heard them coming up to this floor, while Namgung by.A moved her head toward the staircase. Considering his reaction, was Young Peng aware of the identities of the people who were coming up to this floor? The people that had arrived upstairs seemed a bit familiar. This was primarily due to the uniform that was identical to Young Peng's. People from the Mount Hua sect. Is it alright for martial artists of Mount Hua to descend the mountain this late at night? I didn't know much about the proceedings of their clan, but I thought that perhaps this action of theirs was quite inappropriate nonetheless. Ha! Who else besides us? The man in front of the newcomers stopped in his tracks when he saw us. Specifically, he halted when his gaze landed on Young Peng, sitting next to me. Young Peng stood up when he saw the man. Senior. Judging by the way Young Peng addressed the man, it seemed that the newcomers were also third-generation students. It was my first time witnessing the third-generation students of the Mount Hua sect besides Young Peng. Now that I looked at them clearly, they really did look younger than the second-generation students. Young Peng. The young man seemed to be a little shocked when he gazed at Young Peng. Why was he reacting like that? Senior, what's wrong? Who is it that, when the martial artist standing behind the young man gazed at Young Peng, they were also stunned for a while. What's going on here? While the awkward atmosphere still lingered in the room, the young man gathered his bearings and asked Young Peng. Did you finish the work you were assigned? Yes, where are the rest of your crew? They had some business to take care of, so they went ahead, while Senior Shinbyuk and Senior Shinsuk are now resting on a different floor. I see, the conversation came to a halt with that. Even with my poor senses, I was able to understand that this situation had taken a really uncomfortable turn. My lord, at least you are aware that you have no sense. Elder Shin. After being silent for some time, Young Peng came to his senses when he glanced toward me. Oh, this is young Master Gu from the Gu clan. He is a very important guest of our Mount Hua sect. Only after hearing those words from Young Peng did the young man turn his gaze toward me. Well, to be more specific, he only looked at me after glancing at Namgung by.A first and then at YCOL.A second. This piece of shit. Yes. I am a third-generation student of the Mount Hua sect, Young Sung. Young Sung's voice trembled as he spoke those words. Seeing him glancing toward Namgung by.A repeatedly like that, I felt like I saw the visage of Young Peng in Young Sung. Stop looking at that child and turn your gaze over to your fiancé. Ha! Hearing Elder Shin's words, I turned my gaze over to Namgung by.A, only to find that she was directing a sharp glare toward Young Sung. Glare. This bland girl is glaring at someone. It was very slight. I was only able to notice that since I had known her for a long time. However, if people who had met her for the first time were to see her, they wouldn't be able to notice that detail as I did. However, she was indeed glaring at him right now. Noticing the indecent behavior of young Sung, young Peng coughed slightly. Upon fixing his demeanor, young Sung then said, "There must be a reason why you were given the task of taking care of the guests. Okay, we shall go greet them as well since they are here." I will be going now, rest well. I responded back to young Sung's bow with one of my own. It seemed like there was something going on behind the scenes as the martial artists started to leave immediately after bidding their farewells. I was also able to notice the incongruity due to the repressed look that young Peng was giving off. Watching that scene reminded me of what young Peng once told me. Other students don't really enjoy sparring with me. I remembered the memory of young Peng telling me those words with a gloomy look on his face. Is he getting bullied or something? The sword dragon himself. Bullied. Having read my mind, Elder Shin spoke out, "This happens when someone has an abundance of talent. There's no way that a dragon can fit into a pond where only the carps swim." I was able to understand the reasoning behind his words. A student with monstrous talent, and considering young Peng's age, he was most probably the youngest of the group. Moreover, since he was able to become a plum blossom swordsman even though he was much younger than them, it was inevitable that they felt jealous of him and just didn't like him. So that's why he's getting bullied, huh? I heard Elder Shin make tsk sounds, even so, for it to be this blatant. There's no way that the upper echelon of the clan is not aware of this. The clan really is being run poorly. Back in my days, it wasn't like this. Why does it always end up with you comparing yourself with them? Sigh. Tsk, even with him clicking his tongue, Elder Shin's voice was definitely tinged with disappointment. With that, I just heaved a sigh and secretly peeked toward young Peng. Expectedly, his face had gotten darker than before. Noticing my look, young Peng's lips curled to form an awkward smile. "Let us finish our meal." He tried his best to sound as bright as possible, however, the meal ended soon after. As I was already full while Namgung by didn't eat much, to begin with. And noticing the awkward atmosphere, YC stopped eating as well. After finishing his meal, young Peng went to where the second generation students were currently staying at. I also stood up from my seat to go to my room, but Namgung by blocked my way. "Lady Namgung." Wondering what was up with her, I called out her name as it seemed like she had something she wanted to tell me. However, she just fidgeted on the spot and didn't speak. "You little shit, just reach your arm out." "Pardon, stop trying to use your head that doesn't even function, to begin with, and just reach your arm out to her head." I just listened to Elder Shin and reached my arm out to her. I felt that he was going to be really mad at me if I didn't listen to him right now, so I deemed it wise to just follow his orders. When I slowly reached my arm out toward her, Namgung by widened her eyes. When my hand reached closer to her, Namgung by leaned her head toward my hand. When it was about to make contact with Namgung by head, a different hand came out of nowhere and started to pat her head instead. It was the small white hand of YC. Namgung by seemed dumbfounded at first, as it had been a hand other than mine that was patting her head, but after realizing that it was YC. She lowered her knees to adjust her height. I guess she felt bad for YC. Because she was on her tiptoes to reach her head. This was due to the fact that Namgung by was pretty tall for a woman while YC. Was still quite short. After patting her head for a while, YC. Stopped her actions. After YC. Stopped patting her, Namgung by raised her head once more. YC. Spoke in a rather proud voice. "I did it." Seeing her behave like that, Namgung by softly stroked YC.'s cheek. But then, she looked at me with a blank look on her face once again. Did she really stop me just for this? Next time, Namgung Bai Da didn't finish what she was going to say. It seemed like she wanted to say something to me, but she opted to go back to her room instead. I wondered just what was up with her. Did you see her ears? Elder Shin randomly asked. Ears? Your fiancé's ears were red. Namgung Bai Dada's ears. I wasn't really able to notice it due to the fast pace with which she had gone back to her room. Anyways, while I was standing there, still wondering why she had stopped me like this, I like sis, huh? I heard YCOL.ah mumble something to herself. But I'm not going to let her have it. She sounded quite serious as she uttered those words. I was gonna ask what she was muttering since she was also acting a bit weird right now, but YCOL.ah quickly said, "Have a good night," and swiftly hopped away from my side. It seemed like she was heading toward the room where the servants stayed. Wah! And due to that, I was left standing here by my lonesome. I couldn't get used to these weird acts they were doing for some reason. After zoning out for a while, I also went toward my room. My head wasn't functioning correctly due to the tiredness I was feeling. As soon as I entered my room, I buried my face in the soft bed. I somehow managed to come all the way to this place. Now all I had to do is leave after taking care of all my business in this place. I was entrusted with the task of climbing the great mountain to return the treasure and bring back my little sister home. I just decided to think about it tomorrow. I'm just going to sleep for now. Sigh. I heard Elder Shin's sighs, but I didn't have any energy to ask what that was for. I'll just see to it tomorrow morning. After thinking like that, I fell asleep right away. Asterisk 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 asterisk, chirp. Chirp. I woke up to the sounds of the birds chirping outside and the traces of sunlight that was permeating through the window. I was in such a deep state of slumber that I didn't even have the nightmares I would usually have when sleeping. Thanks to that, I was able to wake up more refreshed than usual. How long has it been since I had such a good sleep? Getting out of bed, I started stretching my body. The sounds of the bones cracking with loud popping noises emanated from every part of my body. Oof, that was refreshing. Did you sleep well? I heard a voice just then. Obviously, I thought that it was just Elder Shin talking in my head. Yes, did you also have a good night's sleep? Yes, I don't know if it's because I'm old, but I always feel so sleepy. What are you talking about? What kind of ghost? I stopped the rest of my words before they could come out of my lips. Something was strange here. Was Elder Shin's voice always this clear? I usually heard his voice directly inside my head rather than through my ears. However, today, his voice was very clear and it even sounded different from usual. What's going on? While I was still struggling to uncover the incongruence I was feeling due to still being half asleep, Elder Shin's voice resounded in my head, "That's not me." Cold sweat began trickling down my face at Elder Shin's words. With goosebumps trailing throughout my body, I turned my head toward the source of that sound. Some old man with a smile was sitting down in that place. In a room that was none other than mine. Who are you? The old man smiled at my question. I did live a long life, but this is the first time I'm being treated as a ghost. With each word and movement of the old man, something in my lower abdomen started to stir and move around. Oh. Then I heard Elder Shin's voice tinged with surprise. It felt like the chi of plum blossoms he had been suppressing till now had begun leaking out. My mind must be playing tricks on me, right? The sunlight that entered through the window seemed to have a slight scent of plum flowers mixed into it. The old man calmly began brushing his beard with his hand. I was soon able to feel it clearly as I began sobering up from my sleep. The scent wasn't coming in from the window. The scent that filled up the whole room was coming from that old man. Child, I heard that Gu Ryan sent you here. The old man mentioned the second elder's name. I hid the feeling of cold sweat in my body and gulped. The man looked at me and smiled lightly. And put down the hand that was calmly brushing his beard. It was then that I was able to see the symbol of plum blossom on his chest. After seeing that, my eyes shook violently, as though an earthquake was taking place inside them. Ignoring my trembling eyes, the old man calmly introduced himself. "Nice to meet you, I'm the Lord of the Mount Hua sect, Doa." My heart skipped a beat at the old man's words. Why is this man in my room? Chapter 64. Immortal Healer, 1, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Immortal Healer, 1. I just couldn't believe my eyes. I mean, it was understandable considering the fact that the first thing I saw when I woke up in the morning was an old man sitting in my room. Additionally, it wasn't just any old man either. The celestial plum blossom, Doa. He was the current lord of the Mount Hua sect as well as the most revered master among the Taoist clans. He was a sword wielder so respected, he was often compared to the sword emperor, Wei Hyagun. And such a master was sitting in my room. Sip. He even had a cup of tea from who knows where. Not only that, but what is that? Is that a skewer? Ah. When I tried to talk to him, the celestial plum blossom stopped me with a gesture of his hand. I was confused by his action when, all of a sudden, he took a bite off the skewer. "I'm sorry, I still haven't had breakfast yet." "Pardon. It's hard for me to move when I'm hungry, being old sucks." "Oh, right. Huh. What? What is this guy, what an eccentric maniac." I accidentally coughed at Elder Shin's words. "How could you give such a harsh evaluation of your own kind my ass? When that kid was born, I was already a corpse, you little brat." Kid. I guess it was true that the celestial plum blossom was a very young child from Elder Shin's perspective, but it still felt really weird. After he had finished his tea and skewer, he wiped his mouth. "I apologize, I was gonna come straight here but that skewer looked incredibly delicious, so I just had to buy it. No. It's not a problem at all." "Huh, you sure are a nice kid." After finishing his tea, the celestial plum blossom started to speak. "So you are Gu Ryun's grandson, correct?" "No, I'm not the grandson of the second elder." Are you not Gu Ryun's grandson?" "No, we did share the same blood. But I wasn't his direct descendant." "Weird, I thought you were since he told me he was sending one of his grandchildren. The second elder didn't get married." "I know that, but who knows, maybe he could have gotten a child from somewhere else." "Huh. Was that even possible?" The more I spoke to him, the more extraordinary he looked. That he's probably not normal considering the fact that he bet a clan's treasure on a drinking competition. I stopped myself from coughing out loud at Elder Shin's comment. Right. Isn't this the guy who lost a clan treasure over a simple bet? He doesn't really seem like the type of person who would do such a thing though. He really did look like a Taoist. Since you knew that I would be arriving here, that means that you got the letter from the second elder, right? Right, he told me to treat his grandson nicely since he was the one bringing me the stone. Grandson, huh? It felt a bit strange being called that since I wasn't used to it. But it made sense that the second elder would write the letter in that way. The celestial plum blossom spoke as he looked at me. "I apologize for coming here this early in the morning, but I couldn't wait when I heard that you arrived here." "Is that why you just barged into someone else's room while they were still asleep?" Now that I thought about it, it was only natural since this matter involved the treasure that symbolized their clan. Phew, I still remember all the scoldings I got from the other elders when they heard about what I did with the stone. He does feel a sense of guilt and responsibility toward the treasure, right? Isn't that right, Elder Shin? Don't ask me. Elder Shin's trembling voice definitely had a hint of embarrassment in it. However, something like this shouldn't happen again. I would be a beast rather than a human if I drank with those guys again. When he's referring to those guys, I assume it included the second elder as well. What kind of meeting was it for it to have such grand figures? Thanks to that, however, my expectations pertaining to the celestial plum blossom's elegance had been instantly shattered. Almost as badly as Elder Shin's, why am I suddenly included in this? Think about all the things you did up until now, how am I supposed to feel any respect toward you, for fuck's sake? I'm not a person that should be getting this kind of treatment. Yeah, you aren't a person, you're a ghost. The celestial plum blossom let out a deep sigh of frustration and spoke to me. Right, so where is the treasure, kid? After speaking for a bit, he finally asked about the treasure. I am in possession of the treasure. That's good to hear, then, however, I can't give it to you just yet. The celestial plum blossom became dumbfounded at my words as I fixed my posture. I was tasked to give the treasure directly to the Lord of the Mount Hua sect. Right, and that Lord of the sect is right in front of you. Wouldn't it be possible that you aren't actually the Lord of the sect? The celestial plum blossom zoned out for a bit at my response, he was clearly stupefied. He suddenly burst out into laughter in the middle of the room. Do I look fake to you? Not at all. I may be young and still have plenty of room for growth, but I am certain that I am looking at the head of the Mount Hua sect. The scent of plum flowers that wafted through the air despite him remaining perfectly still, and the chi started to move around when I saw him. I could tell that this person was the celestial plum blossom just by looking at him. The celestial plum blossom asked, then why? Because I must do this in the right way, unlike him. I, Gu Yangchen, came here representing the Gu clan to return the treasure of Mount Hua. Even while I was speaking, I gulped without realizing. I couldn't believe I have to do such a thing this early in the morning. What a hassle this is. Why don't you just give it to him here and now? Don't act like you don't know, it's already been set up ever since the start. Your senses only work at times like these. Even though your senses suck when it comes to a certain other thing. It wasn't like I knew that this guy would appear out of nowhere in the morning. The celestial plum blossom just looked at me without cutting me off. It seemed like he was going to let me finish. Therefore, I can't just give you the treasure when we aren't even in Mount Hua. I see. But child, I think you are forgetting something. I was going to ask what that was, but my mouth couldn't move. My body shook from the overwhelming pressure that was suppressing my shoulders. Despite that small body of his, he put out so much chi that it instantly filled up the whole room. Did you forget that I could just take it away by force without listening to you? I withstood the pressure and started to circulate my chi. It was probably not the best decision, but I had to do it in order to breathe. I was able to see that this was the celestial plum blossom's intention from the start. The first proof was that Elder Shin, who was usually so talkative, was quiet now. And the second, I can still use my chi. The celestial plum blossom gave me just enough room to let me use my chi in order to see what I'm capable of. I didn't know why all this was happening, but if he wants me to, I would do it. If you were weak in this God-forsaken world, you couldn't do anything about it. After slowly circulating my chi around my body, my shoulders that were being suppressed were now able to move. Whoa, the celestial plum blossom seemed to be impressed. While I was barely able to withstand it, my voice came out weakly, I don't think you will. How come? Presses. The pressure became heavier. This crazy guy, why did he make it harder for me to answer after he had asked a question? Ouf, I decided to use more of my chi while groaning. I thought that maybe this was the right answer after all, not too much, it might rampage again. I know that. An aura of fire started to linger around my shoulders. But I didn't let the flames get any bigger and compressed it instead. Thanks to that, I felt good enough to speak clearly. As I said before, I am certain that you are the Lord of the Mount Hua sect. The celestial plum blossom's eyes lit up. Even so, what would you do if I just took the treasure anyway because I didn't like your actions? If that's the case, then I wouldn't be able to do anything about it. I won't die, so I would just report on what happened after returning to the clan. Haha. Not thinking about the consequences, I see. You are very similar to Gu Ryan. Pardon. That's the biggest insult I've heard all year. But I couldn't afford to show that I was annoyed, so I forcefully smiled. What is that monstrous face of yours? Along with the celestial plum blossom's words, the chi that filled up the whole room instantly vanished. Are you out there? The man that came inside my room after hearing the celestial plum blossom was Xinhyun, who left for Mount Hua last night. Yes, my lord. Did he just call him inside? Don't they know that this is my room? Once the guests of the Gu clan finish their preparation, we will slowly go up, so tell that to the elders. Yes, my lord. After Xinhyun left, the celestial plum blossom looked at me, who was slightly exhausted, and spoke. In the past, Gu Ryan told me about you. The second elder. Yes, he always said that you were a hard one to deal with because you caused so much trouble. Haha. That old man talked shit about me to an outsider. And that guy was now using words he had never used before to brag about you. Brag about me. Yes, he looked so different that I couldn't forget about it. Ahem. The celestial plum blossom laughed. I apologize. Not only did I come here early in the morning, but I even roughed you up a bit. I let out a cough to fix my voice after hearing him. I know I'm lacking a lot right now, so I couldn't understand why you chose to do this, but you must have a good reason. Did you coat your tongue with sugar or something? You really know how to use your mouth. I had to do something since the guy in front of me was a superhuman who could easily erase a mountain if he so wanted to. Gu Ryan, that guy never listened when I begged him for the past few years to give the treasure back, so do you know what deal we made for him to give it back? I do not know. He told me to guide you. Ha! I was dumbfounded. The second elder said what? I thought that he just gave me the treasure because he was too lazy to go himself. It was also scary to hear that he didn't give back the treasure he won from a drinking bet for a few years. The celestial plum blossom kept speaking while laughing as if to neglect my thoughts. It doesn't seem like you need it in my eyes though. Not at all. How can I, child? Too much humbleness can be poison. I was also certain that the dragon sword of Mount Hua was going to be the greatest prodigy of this generation, but after seeing you, I have changed my mind. I didn't have anything to say to that. I wouldn't dare to hear such a thing as this in my past life, so it was completely new to me, but I also felt slightly guilty because I was now able to hear this only after my regression. What can I do about it though? I basically gave up. Since I decided to just receive all these compliments shamelessly. Then, what should I do? What do you mean? No matter how I look at it, it doesn't seem like you need any guidance, but a marble of chi wouldn't be enough. No, I think a marble of chi would be oh. Yes, we can do that. Ha. Right, we can talk about it after we go up. What is it for God's sake? Why decide for yourself while not even telling me what it is? Right. I'll see you later. You aren't even talking back to him though. Ahem. Right, come find me when you come up, as it seems like both of us have much to talk about. For example, a reward. After saying that, the celestial plum blossom pointed toward my lower abdomen. And that chi you are harboring inside your body. I couldn't help but tremble at the words that the celestial plum blossom said while smiling. Perhaps, he noticed. Yes, Lord. Right, come see me after you eat breakfast. Starving won't do you any good. After saying that, the celestial plum blossom went out the window. Wait, why go out the window and not the door? What a maniac. Truly. I had to agree with Elder Shin this time. After the storm, I went outside with a hollow face. Million was waiting for me with a frozen look on his face. What's up? No, thing. It looked like he had seen a ghost or something. I ignored Million for now and looked for YCOL.A. Usually, that girl would knock on my door first thing in the morning, but she didn't today. Where is she? Are you talking about why Seoul? Ah. Yeah, and why are you so stiff? I was able to shake hands with Lord Celestial Plum Blossom. Ha! I can die happy now. Right. I shook my head as I saw my escort zoning out. What kind of face would he make if he found out that he had shared many conversations and meals with the Sword Emperor, who was known to be the greatest swordsman in the world? The thought intrigued me. Anyways, where did she go? I heard that she went somewhere as she had something to do with Elder Y. Elder Y. She went somewhere with the Sword Emperor. In Shangxi. Where can it be? Mian handed me something. It's the seal of approval of the clan. Since it had the symbol of the Gu clan on the paper, it clearly wasn't fake. And I don't think the Sword Emperor would lie about something like this. She'll be fine since she's with the Sword Emperor. When I was about to go to the dining room for breakfast after having thought that, someone walked out of the room nearby. The person who came out while rubbing her sleepy eyes was Namgung Bai. Oh. Namgung Bai. Slowly waved her hand when she found me. Is that her way of greeting me in the morning? She appeared to be very peaceful. It seems like she didn't know what happened this morning. After I had stared at her for a bit, I spoke to her. Want to have breakfast? Namgung Bai. Slightly nodded her head upon hearing my question. Chapter 65. Immortal Healer, 2, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Immortal Healer, 2. Slam. Slam. Deep inside a cave, the sound of metal clashing echoed. The sickening smell that lingered was so pungent, it made him frown. Beichong walked deeper into the cave with shaky legs. After he followed the torches that had been hung up on the walls of the cave, he found a large man on an even larger chair. Besides the chair, rested a giant sword that boasted a size similar to the average adult male. Beichong walked towards the colossal man and slowly kneeled before him. The owner of the giant sword looked at Beichong unhappily and then spoke to him. Our tail was caught. He spoke with an incredibly dissatisfied tone. Beichong gulped down his saliva and responded. Yes, sir. I believe the Mount Hua sect is onto us. I guess it was too greedy of us to kidnap the title sword, huh? A plum blossom swordsman, the title sword, Xincheng. After they had kidnapped him when the opportunity presented itself, their tail was caught. Unfortunately, the Mount Hua sect noticed sooner than they had anticipated. It's probably too risky to capture more of their clan members after they had noticed a change. I will report it to the main palace. Don't be late. You saw what happened to the guy that got his arm chopped off because he was late, right? Yes, sir. The large man took out a letter and threw it at Beichong as he chewed on fried scorpions. Beichong. Yes, sir. I heard that another problem occurred in Yongqian. Do you know what it is? I heard that the raccoons appeared. Raccoons. How did they know? Raccoon was a derogatory term used to describe the Hao clan. They caught on to us at that place out of all the places. I get that the Hao clan was known for possessing an extensive information network, but I couldn't understand this situation. Is there a traitor? They couldn't be sure that there wasn't one in their midst, but it was hard to believe that they had a traitor that worked for a clan like the Hao clan and not a group like the Muram Alliance. The large man's hand stopped moving. It was because he ran out of fried scorpions to eat. Beichong, who quickly noticed, spoke to the man. I will tell our guys to bring in more. I like how quick-witted you are. The large man stood up with a smile. His huge physique was enough to overpower the average person. Beichong continued to speak. There was an order from the main palace. Go on, I'm listening. The immortal healer is said to have appeared in Shangxi. The large man's eyes widened at Beichong's words. The immortal healer. Yes, sir. I heard that he was in Anhui last time, and now he's in Shangxi. That man has quite the energy for being so old. We sent some people to find his exact location. To Beichong's words, the large man showed off his yellow teeth. The threatening aura that came from the large man shook the entire cave. Beichong. Yes, sir, I don't remember ordering you to send our guys to find him. His hand reached for Beichong's heart. Before it reached his heart, Beichong quickly spoke. The leader gave the order himself. After he heard Beichong's words, the man's hand stopped, and the threatening aura slowly disappeared as well. Really? Yes. Here is the letter that was directly sent to me. Beichong handed over the letter with shaky hands, and the large man took it and opened the letter. In the letter, there was a stamp that the Lord marked himself. Because of this, the large man's expression became dissatisfied. For him to send a letter without telling the branch manager, I get that the leader is a busy man, but that hurts a little. Right. He must have been busy. It's because you suck at your job, you pig. Beichong thought to himself. Beichong couldn't actually say this out loud, so he gulped the words back down his throat. So, what am I supposed to do? Kill him? The order and its details were all written in the letter, but it was annoying how he barely read the contents of the letter. However, Beichong couldn't do anything about it. To capture and imprison was the order. Imprisonment again. Yes, the leader ordered us not to harm the hands or the eyes no matter what happens. Lame. The large man made an unhappy face after hearing Beichong. Beichong cooled down the anger he felt. It annoyed him how that man was given the branch manager position. But his strength alone was reason enough for him to become the branch manager. The giant Oni, Yahiljik. His strength was enough for him to belong in the main palace. However, his over-the-top nasty way of fighting got him kicked from the main palace, so he became a branch manager of this place. Basically, despite his stupidity, he was still given the branch manager position after getting kicked out of the main palace based solely on his monstrous strength. Oh, I can rip apart anyone who interferes, right? Yes, as long as the immortal healer is captured. Yes, I hope we find him soon. Even better if more of those guys from the Mount Hua sect come. Yahiljik picked up his giant sword after saying that. It was without a doubt a humongous sword, but compared to Yahiljik, it seemed quite small. Swing. The sword swing sent out a wind slash that went right above Beichong's head. Slom. Beichong had to calm his racing heart after he heard the sounds of destruction that came from behind him. Yahiljik didn't care about Beichong and flashed his yellow teeth with a smile. The dragon sword, huh? I heard that he was decent amongst the kids. I hope I see him soon. Nothing makes me happier than stepping on those little kids. Yahiljik giggled. Creak. Beichong clenched his eyes shut as he heard the giant sword scratching the ground. After Yahiljik walked past him and finally left the dark cave, Beichong was then able to finally let go of the breath that he held back. Fuck, he couldn't do this anymore. Beichong couldn't work under that maniacal pig any longer. After the talk with the celestial plum blossom ended, I had breakfast and started to make my way toward Mount Hua. Due to the mountain's absurd height, we couldn't bring the servants with us, so we just brought some of the escorts, which included Nguyen. Namgung Bai Da also wanted to follow me to Mount Hua, so I just told her to do as she pleased. I knew that even if I told her not to follow me, she wouldn't listen anyway. We started to go up the seemingly endless peak of Mount Hua, the Lotus Peak. If it was me from before, I would have collapsed after having barely gone a quarter of the way up. But thanks to the persistent training I had done for the past few months, it wasn't too bad for me. Of course, I was so tired midway up that I had to start using my chi. Young master. We are almost there. I frowned at young Peng's words. You said that earlier. We are almost there for real this time. How is that guy so energetic? Young Peng had climbed all those stairs with me, but he didn't even break a sweat. Plus, Namgung who was following me also didn't seem to be tired at all either. She was sweating a bit, but it didn't seem too bad for her. Am I just weak back? Stay quiet if you were about to go on about your back in my day stories. I stopped Elder Shin from talking. Elder Shin remained silent after I guessed what he was about to say correctly. After climbing up the endless mountain without rest, the gate of the sect finally appeared. We are here. Jeez. After we climbed up the hellish mountain, I looked back at the view from the top of the mountain. The scenery from such a high mountain was indescribably beautiful. It's beautiful, right? I nodded my head at Young Peng's words. It seemed like I wasn't the only one that was awed by the beautiful scenery. It's still beautiful, thank goodness. I heard Elder Shin's emotional voice. It was different and lighter than usual. While staring at the beautiful scenery from on top of the mountain, I heard the gate open from behind me. Creak. What are you doing there? Young Peng was surprised by the voice and quickly bowed. The person that came out from the gate was none other than the celestial plum blossom. What kind of head of a clan greets his guest directly from the gate? Greetings, Lord. Oh, Young Peng, good work. The celestial plum blossom patted Young Peng's head. The escorts of the Gu clan froze up after seeing the celestial plum blossom. Even Namgung and Muyin, who usually seemed emotionless, had their eyes wide open. I also bowed and showed respect. I am Gu Yangchen of the Gu clan. We already had our intense meetup in the morning, so why are you saying hello again? The celestial plum blossom laughed. Come in, I hope you aren't too disappointed since there isn't much to see here. We followed the celestial plum blossom into the Mount Hua sect. Inside the sect, there were trees that had plum blossoms in full bloom despite the fact that it wasn't the season for them to bloom. It made me feel as if we were still in the middle of spring. I believe that this was related to their qi. The qi of Mount Hua was called the spirit qi. I would assume it had earned that name since it could affect the nature around it. After walking through the flowering plum trees, I noticed that there were buildings sprawled around the area. They seemed to have been built a long time ago, but they showed no signs of aging. They must have been cleaned quite frequently. After our group had passed through several small buildings, there was one building at the very end. Come in. It was the clan head's place. Oh, everyone else please stay outside besides that kid. The celestial plum blossom said as he pointed at me. I stopped in my tracks at his words. I was surprised at first, but I followed him into his place after telling the escorts I would be fine. Namgung seemed a little disappointed, but nothing could have been done about it since it was the head's order. It was rather empty inside the building of one of the heads of the 10. Sect Alliance. The only things inside the building were the things he needed. In the middle, the celestial plum blossom started to brew tea. Oof, this was more uncomfortable than I expected. This old man has nothing to serve you besides this plum tea. I like plum tea. Oh, that's good, it seems like most young men nowadays don't like plum tea. I didn't really like it, but I didn't dislike it either. The plum tea the celestial plum blossom brew himself had a pretty dense scent to it. After taking a sip, it was much sweeter and sour than I had expected, which I liked. YCOL.A would like this as well. Even at a time like this. I was reminded of YCOL.A by something as simple as sweets now. I started to become more aware of how much I thought about YCOL.A. It seems like it's to your liking. The celestial plum blossom smiled. Did I take that many sips? I would like to give you something to chew, but I have nothing else besides this. It's no problem. The tea you gave me is good enough. After drinking a bit more, I carefully handed him the box I brought. It was the box that held the treasure inside. The celestial plum blossom opened the box and unwrapped the cloth. Then a shining light along with the scent of plum flowers filled the room. Phew, The celestial plum blossom let out a sigh after seemingly being relieved. Then he wrapped it in cloth again and flung the. He threw it. Thump. The box that held the treasure inside landed in one of the corners of the room. What? Thank goodness. The elders won't nag at me anymore now that I had gotten the stone back. Can he really treat the stone like that? Isn't that the treasure of his sect? Elder Shin, is this really, Elder Shin? I kept calling him, but Elder Shin didn't respond. Huh. Since when did it start? Elder Shin hadn't talked at all for the past few minutes. It didn't seem like he was being quiet on purpose either. First. I was woken up from my thoughts after hearing the celestial plum blossom's voice. He had something to say. I thank you for bringing me the treasure, child of the Gu clan. He spoke in a serious tone that was filled with respect. I too, also fixed my posture. It must have been a difficult trip for you to come all the way here. Not at all, my lord. I already sent my thanks to the lord of the Gu clan, but please tell him again directly that this old man is truly thankful. Yes, I won't forget and will deliver your message. The celestial plum blossom took out a letter. He marked the letter with a symbol in the shape of a plum flower. This officially ended the mission of bringing the treasure to Mount Hua. When I was carefully putting the letter in my pocket, the celestial plum blossom spoke to me. Kid. He was back to his usual tone of voice after finishing the business between the two clans. Yes, Lord. Since we finished our business with the treasure, let's now talk about the thing you have inside you. The topic finally came up. Cold sweat started to flow down my face. I expected to be caught. But to be caught so quickly was unexpected. While I looked at the celestial plum blossom with shaky eyes, he was just sipping on his tea. Was he letting me speak first? What do I do, should I just pretend that I didn't know about it? While I was engrossed in my thoughts, the celestial plum blossom started to speak. The thing I feel within you is definitely that of Mount Hua's. Shit, I don't think I can lie now. I guess even with Elder Shin suppressing the power of Mount Hua, it wasn't enough to be hidden from the celestial plum blossom after all. I'm curious as to why that's inside you. It would be nice if Elder Shin was here to help me at a time like this. But I couldn't hear Elder Shin. I wasn't sure if it had something to do with the celestial plum blossom. I couldn't think of anything to say. I wasn't confident enough to deceive the eyes of the celestial plum blossoms. In the end, I took a deep breath and started to tell the celestial plum blossom everything that had happened on my way to Mount Hua. Chapter 66. Immortal Healer, 3, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Immortal Healer, 3. Slowly, I told the celestial plum blossom about my circumstance, however, I was not able to reveal everything to him. So, I decided to just tell him the necessary parts truthfully while omitting the rest. I was in the possession of the treasure at first when I left the clan. Without mentioning my demonic ability, I just told him that I found the power inside me one day while I was asleep during the night after a long day of training. Honestly speaking, there was nothing more to it. As that was what really happened that night. I contemplated whether I should mention Elder Shin or not but decided not to, in the end. It was because I believed it would be better to ask Elder Shin's permission before acting on my own. It didn't take me too long to tell him everything about my circumstance. After I finished explaining everything, the celestial plum blossom just brushed his beard with his hands. Would he really believe me? Even I myself thought that it was pretty much impossible to believe the contents of my explanation. As expected, I heard the celestial plum blossom say with a troubled expression on his face. That's not very easy to believe. Pour the celestial plum blossom poured some tea. In the silent room, the sound of pouring tea resounded with a rather loud noise. Your claim to have absorbed that energy even though an outsider shouldn't have that energy inside them, and you even being able to possess it is rather hard to believe. Yes, I understand. A completely different chi altogether. Its nature was completely opposite from my innate chi as well. Not only the destructive flame arts, but rather any and all kinds of flame arts entirely differed from the chi that belonged to the Taoists. Since one type of chi represented peace while the other type represented destruction. It was already pretty weird that I was able to reach the fourth realm of my flame arts with such an absurd combo of two different chis. However, the fact that I was completely fine and didn't even enter the chi overflow state was far weirder. I didn't know if my demonic ability played a part in this. However, I was not able to come up with any other explanation other than that. If this shitty ability, that latched onto me even after my regression, was not responsible for my current state, then I didn't know what else could be the cause of it. The celestial plum blossom still had his eyes on me. I can feel the power of plum blossoms within you that only a handful of my students have. The power that was inside me. I wasn't even able to feel it when Elder Shin hid the power within me. However, the celestial plum blossom was able to instantly feel the chi. It didn't matter whether I intended to create this current situation of mine or not. This was still a huge problem that I had to face with no way out. To put it in a different perspective, if someone from the Mount Hua sect had the power of destructive flame arts, and to a higher degree at that, it would be so big a problem that the clan leader would have no choice but to address this problem himself. I don't think you are lying, but as a sect leader I still have to check it for myself, even though it's very hard to believe. Yes, thankfully, the treasure seems to have no problem. When did he check it after throwing it away like that? Moreover, he wants to check himself. What kind of method would he use to check it even? I assumed that it wouldn't be a method that would be harmful to my body. Since I had already gone through the hassle of returning the treasure even though he was the one that lost it due to a drinking bet, moreover, as the Mount Hua sect was part of the orthodox factions, I believed that he wouldn't do anything violent to me. In addition, I had faith in the people of the Mount Hua sect. After thinking for some time, the celestial plum blossom clapped his hands with a bright look on his face, seemingly having found a solution. Okay, might as well do this then. The celestial plum blossom drank the rest of his tea and swiftly stood up from his seat. My lord. I heard that you also came to Mount Hua for your sibling, correct? Yes. Indeed. Why is she being mentioned all of a sudden? The celestial plum blossom nodded his head at my response. Good timing then, follow me. The sect leader told me to follow him suddenly. I couldn't help but ask with a confused look on my face. Where are we going? He just responded with a light smile stretching his lips. You should go and meet with your little sibling since you came to Mount Hua. I zoned out for a second after hearing his words. Now, all of a sudden. The sounds of the water mill echoed in the forest. The chirping sounds of birds could often be heard in the surroundings, while sunlight descended through the gap of the trees. In between this beautiful scenery was a road, and at the end of that road was a small hut. It was a place that was located a bit far away from Huayin. And this very hut that was built by the leader of the 10th generation of the Mount Hua sect after his retirement, was now being used as a form of shelter. It's all ruined. The elderly with a head full of white hair spoke inside the hut. The elderly's croaky voice was quite unpleasant, however, no one in the hut cared about that. Due to the weight of the name that was given to this old man. The immortal healer. That was what the world called him. He couldn't revive the dead, but he was blessed by the heavens with the ability to heal anyone as long as they breathed. The wandering man that never stayed in one place for long, which made finding him a very hard task, was currently inside his hut. Your body and airflow are all messed up. How did you withstand the pain when your body is rotting away like this? It wasn't that painful, the woman responded while gazing at her disciple. However, her action only made him frown. You are acting like that even when you are in this condition. The child must also know about your condition someday. Lord Immortal Healer, do not call me that. The student, listening to everything next to her master, couldn't help but flinch. Then, she directed her eyes filled with tears toward her master. Master, TSK. The immortal healer clicked his tongue. It had been some time since he had started doing the checkup, so he was now sweating on his forehead. Seeing that, the boy, sitting quietly next to the immortal healer, took out a towel and wiped the sweat off of the immortal healer's forehead. The carefully held arm of the sickly woman was gently put down by the immortal healer. He had finished checking her pulse, but his expression didn't get any better. The woman's body was slowly rotting away. She looked like a normal elderly woman from the outside, but she looked compared to her age. Something like this should never happen with the level of martial excellence she had attained. The Plum Blossom Sword. The woman that played a huge role in the world as the Lord of the Mount Hua sect, was now slowly rotting away. The immortal healer concluded that the only reason she was able to still move around and breathe was due to the level of qi she wielded. But if that runs out, the qi that was the primary force in sustaining her life was slowly rotting away too. And the biggest problem here was, I've never seen such a disease. Someone coughed at the immortal healer's words. As those words were delivered by none other than him, the best healer in this world, incomparable to anyone else. Sword Master. Yes, how long has it been since you became like this? The Plum Blossom Sword spoke after glancing at her disciple. It has been around. For years. What happened? The Plum Blossom Sword suddenly clenched her trembling hands tight. She was unable to say anything after that. Moreover, blood started flowing down from the corner of her quivering lips. Master. The student lent a helping hand to her master. And along with her, the boy next to the immortal healer also handed a towel to the Plum Blossom Sword as he did before to the immortal healer. Thank you. Nod. The boy nodded to the Plum Blossom Sword's words. The immortal healer brushed his beard while he gazed at the Plum Blossom Sword wiping the trail of blood off her face. Forbidden, huh? An unknown disease, moreover, a forbidden spell was attached to it. A spell that made it forbidden for the person to say anything about the disease by harming them internally. It was the first time he had seen something like this. I would have noticed during the checkup if it was a forbidden spell. Usually, there should be a trace of the forbidden spell left on someone's body if it was cast on them, as forbidden spells are known to leave a dense trace of it on a person's body. However, the immortal healer couldn't find a single trace of it on the Plum Blossom Sword's body. The only thing he could feel was her body slowly rotting away. It felt like his 80 years of studying and knowledge were utterly useless at this moment. How discomforting, the discomfort of the unknown. And the nervousness he felt at the mere thought of not being able to save someone's life due to the unknown. In the first place, he had become a healer because he was unable to deal with the feeling of loss. Doa, you piece of shit, the immortal healer wouldn't have gone to Anhui if it wasn't for the Lord of Heaven's calling, and he wouldn't have responded to the celestial plum blossoms call either if he wasn't in Anhui. The way these martial artists handle things. Lord Immortal Healer, I told you not to call me that. I apologize. Elder. Right. May I ask how much time I have left in me? The immortal healer let out a sigh at the Plum Blossom Sword's question. He knew the answer to that question more than anyone else. And he hated relaying those words to a person. 2 months at worst, and if you are lucky you will live until the winter. But you probably won't make it to the end of this year. Was something he couldn't say, so he just swallowed back those words before they could leak out. Since he could already see the young girl crying next to her master. He hated it. He hated seeing such a scene. And there was nothing he could do about it. Life is still sickening as ever. No matter how much he studied and no matter how much knowledge he gained, there would always be someone he was unable to save. That was the sole reason why he hated being called the Immortal Healer. The boy sitting beside the Immortal Healer slowly came toward him and pulled his clothes. The Immortal Healer hid the negative emotions swirling in his mind and patted the boy's head. Since it's Doa's request and we knew each other for a while too, I'll give it my all. But don't have high hopes. To his words, the plum blossom sword just slowly nodded her head. And seeing that the immortal healer spoke to the children while rubbing his face. Grandpa and the patient have something to talk about, so you children go play outside. You too. The boy nodded to his words. However, the disciple of the plum blossom sword refused to go out and just dug herself deeper into her master's arms. I want to stay with my ma. Ryungwa. The plum blossom swords muttered in a serious tone. Her disciple couldn't help but flinch at that tone. She looked toward her teacher with tears brimming in her eyes, but her response didn't change. Go outside. Yes. The boy had already gone outside and the disciple followed his steps with disappointment in her eyes. After leaving the hut, she could feel a cool breeze, unbefitting of the summer season, blowing in the air. Gu Ryungwa wiped the tears that threatened to fall from her eyes with her palm as she closed the door of the hut. She didn't want to cry. However, losing someone was something that was still too hard for her to deal with. Master. She was about to use her clothes to wipe the tears that were about to flow out of her eyes once more. However, someone handed her a towel from next to her. It was the boy that was beside the immortal healer. She had heard that he was his grandson. Due to his sudden action, Gu Ryungwa got goosebumps on her back. Even if he was around the same age as her, a boy was still a boy. And Gu Ryungwa hated men. That included young boys as well. Moreover, she especially hated boys around her age. She wanted to slap away the hand that reached toward her, but since the boy was the grandson of the man who came to heal her master, she just couldn't act recklessly with him. Gu Ryungwa had no choice but to hold in the feelings of disgust inside of her and try her best to deny him in the nicest possible way. She didn't even finish her words, but the boy understood what she was trying to convey to him and just sat near the hut without saying a single word. She couldn't help but sigh. Master. She was already missing her master, who was now laying down inside the hut. And when she was reminded of the fact that she couldn't make it to the end of this year, tears kept streaming out of her eyes on their own. What to do? What do I do? The immortal healer was referred to be the greatest healer in the world. If even he was unable to find a solution, then there was nothing left to be done. So there was no way that she, as a disciple, could do anything for her master. Why are you acting like this? Surprised by the voice that suddenly reached her ears, as she kept crying, Gu Ryungwa quickly raised her head. Ryungwa, I see, why are you outside? It was the current lord of the Mount Hua sect, Celestial Plum Blossom, who now stood in front of her. She quickly wiped away her tears and bowed her head. Greetings, Lord. While she was still bowing down, she stopped herself after noticing the boy that was standing next to the Celestial Plum Blossom. A face with a sharp expression and black hair greeted her sight as well as the red uniform that represented the Gu clan. The boy was a pure-blooded descendant of the Gu clan, unlike her who was only considered to be a half-blood. He was the person Gu Ryungwa despised the most in the world. Gu Ryungwa quickly became infuriated at the presence of the boy. Why is that guy here? Why is that guy here when he's supposed to be causing all sorts of troubles back in the clan? Gu Ryungwa couldn't calm herself down as the person she hated the most in the world was now standing before her, in the place she considered to be a safe shelter for her. Why are you? Gu Yangchen cut her words off. Then he suddenly inched closer toward her. Gu Ryungwa's breathing got heavier the closer he came. What was he going to do? She was different than before. She believed that she could easily beat this piece of shit of a lazy brother of hers who only knew how to play and eat all day long without putting any effort into anything. She didn't bring her wooden sword along, but she still believed that she could beat him up as is. She believed she could easily defend against anything he could throw at her. Gu Ryungwa finished preparing mentally after thinking like that. However, Gu Yangchen just walked past Gu Ryunghwa without even glancing at her. Ha! She turned around, dumbfounded by his behavior, and she saw the sight of Gu Yangchen standing in front of the immortal healer's grandson. The boy looked up toward Gu Yangchen. Why are you here? Gu Ryunghwa's eyes became bigger at those words. A threatening aura. She was able to feel a dense threatening aura emanating from Gu Yangchen's body when he spoke to the boy. Chapter 67. Immortal Healer, 4, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Immortal Healer, 4. Hundreds of people were kneeling inside a large room engulfed in darkness. In between the martial artists that were wearing uniforms dyed only in black color, a man could be seen slowly walking between them. Every single one of the demonic humans, who were kneeling in the room, was trembling due to the demonic chi that leaked out of the man and was thoroughly suppressing them. However, he was only looking at the front. The man was only looking at the end of the path he was walking. That we are happy that you came back without a hitch. The man's walking speed gradually turned faster after hearing the calm voice that came from the end of the path, ag. The demonic chi that the man leaked out unconsciously was suppressing everything around him. Oh no, it seems like you are angry. Even then, the person at the end of the path continued to drink his liquor calmly. The man roared after seeing that figure of his, are you satisfied now? The slightest hints of demonic chi leaked out with those words. It was due to the rampaging emotions he was feeling right now. What do you mean? After hearing his words, he directed the demonic chi that scattered all over toward the man at the end of the path, but before the attack could even reach him it ceased to exist. Crack. The man clenched his teeth hard after gazing at the person sitting at the end of the path. The heavenly demon's power was still protecting that man. Lord, I can't understand why you are so mad with this small brain of mine. The guy brushed his long hair with his hand. There was a scar on his cheek that led up to his eye. We were able to conquer Sichuan as planned, while also fending off the Tang clan in the process. And during that process, the Poison Queen ended her life on her own. There was an unexpected death during the war, but we gained more than we wanted as a result. We were successful in killing the majority of the Orthodox faction warriors while also taking the head of their leader with the reasoning of them being irresponsible. But the demonic sword died in the process. So what is the problem? His voice, which had the faintest traces of a chuckle mixed within, itched my ears. He positioned his fan to cover his mouth. I forced myself to withstand the headache that was ravaging my head. Lord. He was beckoning me to come toward him. Zhuge Hyuk. The only man who wasn't a demonic human amidst all these demonic bastards. He was the man that had turned into a key member of the cult with his tongue alone, and he was now looking at the man that approached him with a calculative smile. This was what our Lord wanted. They say that you can't cover the sky with your hand, yet you are trying to cover the sun with your mouth. That I don't know why you are acting like this. Is it because that woman died? Blaze. At those words, seething flames instantly engulfed the room, but they never reached that guy, sitting there with that wretched smile on his face. My body. I'm burning alive. The flames soon engulfed the poor demonic humans around him, but the man's eyes were only aimed at Zhuge Hyuk. Maybe he found something funny in this situation, as Zhuge Hyuk still had that same smile on his face. Your soldiers are all burning alive, you should calm down. The vicious flames didn't seem to have weakened down a single bit. Since the more emotional the man became, the more unruly and violent would the flames become with him. After the war between the demons and the Tang clan, Sichuan had turned into a land that was unsuitable for living, and in the midst of the never-ending poisonous fog lay the Poison Queen who had taken her own life. And the demonic sword who swung her sword under the faint moonlight, gazed up in the sky to search for that ethereal moon and even closed her eyes under the same sky in the end. Never to open them ever again. The moon she loved so dearly was nowhere to be seen, as it had already been covered by the dark clouds of rain and despair. Then what was left, in the end? Nothing. That was what the word sacrifice meant, and I knew that more than anyone else in this world. So why am I so angry? Did I still have a bit of humanity in me even after throwing that title away? It was pretty ironic at this point. Slowly, my hand that was reaching for that insufferable guy's neck went down, and the chaotic flames that were engulfing the whole room in their wrath had started to die down. Zhuge Hyuk only giggled as he saw that sight. So you finally calmed yourself, huh? Shut your mouth, as I'm trying my best to restrain myself from ripping that mouth of yours. That I hope that you aren't mistaken. Zhuge Hyuk's eyes, which had been closed from the start, opened slightly as he spoke to me. That we all came here voluntarily, so your behavior just now doesn't help us here. What are you trying to say? Don't forget that our Lord is still here. That's all I am trying to say. You only serve our Lord and nothing else. Zhuge Hyuk folded his fan and tapped my shoulders with it. Looking at Zhuge Hyuk with fierceness rumbling in the depths of my eyes, I clenched my teeth hard and turned around. In the first place, I had not come to this place to have such a conversation with this fellow. The Lord of Heaven died. His voice reached my ears. However, I chose to walk away, completely ignoring him. The dishonored venerable would meet the same fate soon as well. My steps never stopped no matter what he said. The Sword Emperor lost his arm, so Lord Heavenly Demon wouldn't have to put in any effort either. Continuing my gait, I reached for the doorknob. Then who do you think remains? Pause. I had no choice but to stop at those last words Zhuge Hyuk voiced with a smile on his face. I didn't turn around, as I was unsure just what kind of expression I was making right now. Think carefully, the Lord will definitely leave this up to you. Shatter. The sound of metal shattering into pieces echoed inside the room. The doorknob that I had grabbed was shattered due to my grip. That I hope you make the right decision, sir. Those words, spoken with an unsettling smile on his face, were dirtying my ears. After breaking the door open, I made a sound barrier and started screaming out loud. Having screamed my lungs out, I was able to breathe again. Standing still for some time, I then started moving once again. I was able to somewhat fix my previous expression that made me frown anger. The demonic chi was still rampaging throughout my body, but I just couldn't afford to make it noticeable. Slowly, I walked forward. My next destination was Hunan. **********. The heavenly demon was often discussed as a unique existence that came into existence for the sole purpose of taking the mask off of human faces. But even it was a human. No matter how strong they were, the demonic cult that was formed by the heavenly demon was still a group. However, it was evident that the group wasn't a normal one, as most of the members had gone mad or had become a raving lunatic after transforming into a demon. And, even such a crazy group of disoriented individuals were able to conquer the regions of the martial world thanks to one man. Even the region that had been known for inhabiting the greatest clan of the world had been erased due to the machinations of the demonic cult. While the Murim Alliance, renowned as the very heart of the orthodox factions, had been destroyed due to the very same man. Zhuge Hyuk, the brains of the demonic cult, was the name of that man. He was often referred to as the ears and mouth of the heavenly demon. That devilish man was the person I had been so desperately searching for since my regression. The man that was so hard to find that it made me nervous and think that I would never be able to find him on time, was now standing right in front of me. Why are you here? Not being able to control my surging emotions, I spoke with slight anger in my voice. He looked a bit younger than me in age. He had an unusual set of hair on his head. One side of his head had black hair while the other was covered with white hair. His bangs were covering almost half of his face, so I had to part them to the sides with my hand. The scar that I had seen, the scar covered half of his face. There were no scars like that on him right now. Maybe he hasn't gotten that yet. You, I called out to him in a low voice. There was no response, only his gaze that kept staring at me in silence. Even after a while, there was no response coming from him. Is he ignoring me? Thinking like that, I wasn't able to hold in my anger anymore. The wrath that sprouted from the very core of my body. Rage that I had been suppressing for some time already had now reached to the top of my head. Oh, maybe I should just kill him now. The first thought that came to mind. I already had the intention of killing him, so there really was no need to hesitate. Hey. The sudden shout coming from Elder Shin woke me up from my daze. What the hell are you doing? Let him go. Let go. Let go of what? Thinking like that, as I belatedly gazed at my hand, I was shocked to see that I was actually grabbing the boy's neck. When? What was I trying to do just now? I felt ominous. I understand that I was feeling quite emotional and this body was young and prone to emotions, but to act rashly without even thinking about the consequences of my actions like that. Something was definitely weird here. I was infuriated, I agree, but for me to lose control like that. It's as if I was being controlled by, what are you doing? Along with the sudden emergence of someone's shout, I was quite literally pushed away from the boy, which made me fall down on the ground. After rolling on the grass field for some time, I struggled to get up on my feet. What are you doing after appearing out of nowhere so randomly? A voice filled with unbridled anger entered my ears. When I looked toward the origin of that voice, I was greeted with the sight of a uniform of the Mount Hua sect. She had a head full of short hair that barely reached down to her shoulders and a face that was similar to the facial features of the member of the Gu clan. However, her face was not quite as sharp as my other siblings, probably because her face resembled more to the other parent that didn't belong to the Gu clan. It had been a while since I had seen my little sister. Although I had never expected to see her in this current circumstance. Gu Ryunghwa shouted with anger as she looked at my face. It's already hard enough for me to just see and tolerate that wretched face of yours, why are you making this more difficult for me? What were you trying to do to a kid that can't even speak? Did you do that because you thought that doing that would make me suffer, as he seemed to be someone important to me? What? Even after coming all the way here, what did Gu Ryunghwa just say? He can't speak. I looked at Juga Hyuk with a shocked expression on my face. He still had those emotionless eyes of his. Even when a guy he didn't even know had started grabbing his neck with a firm grip, all of a sudden, he only lightly resisted, not changing that emotionless expression of his for even a second. He can't speak. My head was puzzled after hearing that this kid, who I had believed to be Juga Hyuk, was actually a disabled person. Is it, not him? He didn't have that grotesque scar, nor was he able to speak. The only thing that matched the description was the age gap and that unusual hair of his. Although that could just be a coincidence. For some reason, I was still sure of that fact, that the boy that was sitting there with that eerie gaze was Juga Hyuk. Organize your thoughts first. I took a deep breath after hearing Elder Shin's words. As soon as I exited the sect leader's residence, Elder Shin appeared once more, telling me that not being able to speak was really frustrating for him. Whether that happened due to the location itself or maybe the power of Celestial of Plum Blossom was something that I wasn't sure about. I didn't have the time to find out about it anyways. Since, as soon as Celestial Plum Blossom came out of his residence, he ordered some of his men to help my entourage in finding a shelter and immediately started to run off somewhere. And since I was told to follow, I had no choice but to run along with him. And what is this? In a place that was located a bit away from Mount Hua, there lay an old hut in the middle of a beautiful forest. And there was also Juga Hyuk in this place. Moreover, Gu Ryunghwa, who I hadn't seen in a while, was also in this place, but I suddenly went to the kid while ignoring her as if I was possessed. Elder Shin asked, "You know this child?" To say no, wouldn't explain how this beast has suddenly started rampaging wilder than ever before after you saw that child. I didn't even use my chi, so just what happened for it to rampage like that? After finally calming myself down, I saw the Celestial Plum Blossom come toward me. It seems like you two were closer than I thought. That really came out of nowhere. What do you mean? Were you not angry because your little sister was with some other boy? Pardon. Just what kind of nonsense is he spouting? The Celestial Plum Blossom was really blooming flowers in his head, wasn't he? He really lived up to his title. Gu Ryunghwa started making a face full of disgust as she heard his words. She glanced at Juga Hyuk and then me and felt goosebumps trailing all over skin. She even looked like she wanted to scream her lungs out in disgust, but she was trying her best to hold it in as she was in the presence of the leader of the Mountwa sect. Creak. The door to the hut slowly opened. The person coming out of the building was an elderly man with a head full of white hair. Who is that? Doesn't look like a martial artist to me. That was what I thought as well. Judging by his physique, he didn't seem like a martial artist. But I told myself that I couldn't just judge someone by their physique, as even the Sword Emperor had a similar physique to the elderly man I was gazing at right now. The elderly man looked around and spoke. Why are you all causing a hassle in front of someone's property? The celestial plum blossom smiled at the elderly man's words. Tay. I'm here. He frowned hard after hearing the celestial plum blossom's words. You fucker. You appear now when you were the one that kept a busy man like me in the middle of a mountain like this. To call the Lord of Mount Hua like that. However, it seemed that celestial plum blossom didn't mind after being cursed like that. Then he suddenly pointed toward me and spoke. Please take a look at this kid, Tay. The elderly man then looked at me. He seemed like he was not willing to do that, so I just stood still without knowing what to do now. After gazing at me for some time, the elderly man shouted at the celestial plum blossom. There is nothing to see here, screw off. Slam. After the door of the hut slammed shut like that, I couldn't help but ask the celestial plum blossom. Who is that man? While combing through his beard with his hands, the celestial plum blossom spoke in an awkward tone. It's just a healer I know, but he seems to be more sensitive than usual. Oh, I see. Here, let's go inside first. Ha. But that man told us to screw off. The celestial plum blossom just laughed at my words. He told us to screw off but didn't tell us not to come in, so it should be fine. Isn't that basically the same thing? Whether he didn't hear me or just chose to ignore me was something that I didn't know, but he simply opened the door and entered the hut. Hey, you, piece of shit. I didn't know what to think after hearing the screams and shouts that leaked out of the hut. For some reason, I was able to see the visage of the second elder within this extremely respected Taoist of the Mount Hua sect. Now I understand why they are friends. Chapter 68. Immortal Healer, 5, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Immortal Healer, 5. How are you feeling? The celestial plum blossom asked after he was finally allowed to enter the hut. I also snuck in when things had calmed down somewhat inside. You shouldn't come all the way here when you are so busy, I just happened to stop by, so no need to say that. Lord. The plum blossom sword then smiled at the celestial plum blossom. The immortal healer was still glaring at him, but he didn't speak or say anything else. The immortal healer, I was quite a bit astonished after hearing that the elderly man was actually the immortal healer himself. He was a man who was incomparable in the field of medical techniques. Moreover, he was known as someone who could heal anyone, but due to his wandering nature, it was hard to make contact with him even for the high-ranking clans. But to come across the immortal healer here. I didn't expect him to have such a personality though. Ever since times immemorial, a master of a specific field has always shown to be weird in their own ways. Oh, so that's why. It was definitely credible since he was a reliable example of that trait himself. What? What do you mean by that? Putting aside the matter of the immortal healer, the real problem here was the presence of Juga Hyuk. I kept looking at him while he was quietly sitting down while looking up into the air. Juga Hyuk is the grandson of the immortal healer. I had indeed heard that he was traveling with his grandfather, but I didn't expect said grandfather to be the immortal healer himself. What is going on here? What could have happened for him to change? If that guy really is the Juga Hyuk I know, then what happened to him that drove him to take the heavenly demon's side? The background he had recounted to me was completely different than the one I am currently witnessing with my own eyes. Of course, I didn't believe everything he told me back then, but I never thought that he would actually be the grandson of the immortal healer. Does this also play a role in his transformation in the future? Why is everything getting more and more complicated? Why was it that I could never have anything easy in my life? I glanced at Juga Hyuk and thought to myself. Can I really kill him? I'll. Or should I even kill him? And if I do, when should I, and would it cause trouble, child? Ha! Wake up. I clenched my head at the headache I got after hearing Elder Shin's voice. When I gazed at the direction the voice, other than Elder Shin's, had come from, I saw Celestial Plum Blossom looking at me. Are you feeling ill? No, I'm fine, Tae. The child said he's sick. Shut up. The immortal healer shouted angrily at the Celestial Plum Blossom and continued boiling the Medicaean herbs. Slowly and carefully boiling the herbs, he handed the concoction over to the Plum Blossom sword. Sleep after you drink this, you'll feel tired after taking the medicine. Thank you. A nervous expression floated on Gu Ryungwa's face, worrying that her teacher might drop the medicine from her hands. From the outside, she looked like a weak elderly woman, but both the Celestial Plum Blossom and the immortal healer called her a sword master. And my sister, Gu Ryungwa, was her disciple. Now I understood why Young Peng had said that Gu Ryungwa was his senior. Probably, that was also the reason behind Gu Ryungwa being treated as a second-generation disciple even though she joined the sect even after the third-generation students. Why didn't I know that she was a student of the Plum Blossom Sword? We didn't talk much in my previous life, but I had never heard about Gu Ryungwa being a disciple of the Swordmaster of Mount Hua from others either. That probably meant that this information hadn't been spread outside much. How did Gu Ryungwa even become her disciple? And what happened for the student of the Plum Blossom Sword to be so unknown to the world? I just knew that Gu Ryungwa was a martial artist of the Mount Hua sect and nothing else. The Plum Blossom Sword was a swordmaster who was respected by many swordswomen of the martial world. And if I had to list the top martial artists of the Mount Hua sect, the Plum Blossom Sword would be included at the same tier as the Celestial Plum Blossom. A female swordmaster that never hesitated to run into danger to save others in need. When the true Gate of Demons appeared in Shangxi, not only did the Plum Blossom Sword evacuate all the people to safety, but she also became a generational hero after holding off all the demons until the Celestial Plum Blossom's arrival. However, her sudden inactivity and the news of her hiding from the world was a hot topic that was often discussed by many. Was it because of her disease? Needless to say, she didn't look fine. Just the fact that she looked older than the Celestial Plum Blossom even though being younger than her was enough reason to reach that conclusion. While I kept staring at her like that, our eyes suddenly met. I was surprised by that and flinched, but the swordmaster merely smiled at me kindly. Nice to meet you. Ha! I should have met you much sooner, but too much time has passed away already for that. You know me. Did she hear about me from Gu Ryungwa? I was nervous, naturally assuming that she didn't relay anything good about me to her master. However, the words that left her mouth were totally out of my expectations. You look very much like Chanhee. Words that I never expected to hear, a name that I thought I had already forgotten about. How did she know that name? You knew my mother. Chanhee, the name of my mother. Let alone her name, I have even forgotten that smiling face of hers, and the voice with which she used to call my name. The swordmaster merely smiled at my question. She was a friend of mine, a really good friend. My mother was a friend of yours. How? I was unaware of my mother's experiences from her younger days, but I often heard that she had lived an ordinary life. I guess it's not too weird. Since there was a girl like YC Dada around. The problem here was that I started learning way too many things around me only now, after my regression. He doesn't look anything like her. Were the words Gu Ryungwa spoke while being nestled in the swordmaster's arms. She was glaring at me fiercely. Beov, Ryungwa. That guy looks nothing like my mother. Mother looked like a rabbit, while that guy looks like a human mantis. Mantis. See, I didn't just say that you look like a mantis for no reason. Why is it mantis out of all the options? There are so many cute or cool animals in the world, but why is it that she only compared me to a mantis? Why don't you realize the possibility that maybe you don't look cute or cool? Elder Shin, you can stop now. How heartbreaking. The swordmaster patted Gu Ryungwa's head and spoke. Ryungwa, why are you being so rude to a person that came all the way here for you? That's not, now, apologize to your brother. Gu Ryungwa's lips curled into a sulky pout at the Plum Blossom Sword's words. She was still a kid, after all. So, RY. Her expression told me that she was cursing at me, even though her mouth emitted words of apology. However, she still listened to the swordmaster's words. The swordmaster smiled after seeing Gu Ryungwa's behavior and continued her words. For years ago, when I visited the Gu clan, I wanted to see you as well, but, you were not in the clan at the time. 4 years ago. Oh, is it during then? The time around which I began to see the darkness of the Gu clan. The time that I slowly started getting destroyed from the inside. It wasn't a good time for me. The swordmaster gazed at me with that kind smile of hers without knowing about that fact. I'm glad I can at least see you now, me. Of course, it was very disappointing for me when I couldn't see you back then. Why? Is it because I am the son of her friend? It all started to make sense now. The reason why Gu Ryungwa left for the Mount Hua sect a year after the swordmaster visited our clan 4 years ago was probably due to this. Moreover, since none other than the swordmaster wanted to make Gu Ryungwa her disciple, it was understandable why the father or the elders didn't refuse the offer. Of course, that decision of theirs was probably strengthened further due to my existence. You look very similar to Chanhee. I smiled inwardly at the swordmaster's words. They were words I could never relate to. I don't remember my mother having such a sharp expression on her face though. The outside may be different, but you certainly are very much like her, especially the aura of yours. Even in the middle of this, that woman doesn't deny the fact your face is indeed fierce. Do you really have to tease me every time? Aura, what does that even mean? Trying to understand what she meant now was extremely difficult as all my memories of my mother had grown dim. I just vaguely remember my time with her being warm and comforting. That was the only thing I could remember about her. While I was starting to become engrossed in my own thoughts, I sensed someone next to me handing me something. I wondered who it was, and I found that it was actually Zhuge Hyuk. I was slightly surprised at that. What now? Towel. What does he want me to do with it? What is it? Even when I asked, the guy just continued to stare at me without even moving his mouth. Gu Ryungwa had already told me that he was a disabled boy who was unable to talk. However, it was strange to me since I remembered him talking just fine in my previous life. Was that also due to the power of the heavenly demon? They were even able to make a disabled person talk. Were they even human at this point? As I didn't react or respond much, the boy just put the towel back into his pocket and sat near the immortal healer. Was he always like that? The guy that always had that nasty smile on his face, the guy that led thousands of people just with his words alone without any hesitation, were they really massacred by the same kid that was currently in front of me? Then just what in the hell happened for Zhuge Hyuk to become a supporter of the demonic cult? So. The immortal healer spoke while gazing at the celestial plum blossom. You fucker, why did you even come here? Geez, how could you call the Lord of the Mount Hua sect a fucker? Want me to leave? Call me whatever you like. I came here to see how my disciple is doing. Just shit with your mouth at this point. Your face is blatantly telling me that you came here for something else. Ahem, did you come here for that kid? The immortal healer gazed at me as he spoke those words. I mean, might as well kill 2 birds with 1 stone since I came here. the celestial plum blossom avoided Immortal Healer's gaze after being caught red-handed. It seemed like the Immortal Healer was about to spout flame from his eyes after seeing that action of his. The promise between us ends with the Swordmaster. I'm sure you know this yourself. It was very uncomfortable for me to sit here. I came here when I wasn't even given a proper explanation, however, learning that we had come to the Immortal Healer for my sake made me feel even worse. Geez. Can't you just let it pass? That's what friends are for, you know. Now you are just being utterly shameless. Do you not know just how much it cost for you to hire me to ask something like that? Are you really gonna be so petty? Petty my ass, I'm about to drown you in this medicinal herb. What is this abomination of a conversation I am hearing right now? Is this really the conversation between the greatest Taoist, the celestial plum blossom and the legendary healer, the Immortal Healer? The plum blossom sword just maintained that kind smile of hers even while hearing all this bickering. It looked like she was used to it already. My answer is still no. Come on now, it's obvious that he's not in a normal condition, and if I also took care of him, I can't put all my attention into the Swordmaster, and are you okay with that? My eyes became bigger after hearing the Immortal Healer's words. Not in a normal condition. Who? Me. I ate, pooped, slept, and walked quite well up until now. I couldn't understand why he said that I was not in a normal condition then. If it was anyone else I would have taken those words as pure bullshit, but the problem here was that they came from the Immortal Healer himself. Judging by your reaction, it seems like you weren't aware of that yourself, but you're telling me to fix that. Hey, I never asked you to fix it. Only to check, get out of here with that nonsense of yours, Doa. Immortal Healer's voice was tinged with notes of extreme anger. That's the responsibility of a healer. Are you telling me to neglect a patient even after me knowing that they are hurt? Tay. Plus, I have someone that I have to take care of in front of me. Would the leaf of dragon's candle do it? Pause. The Immortal Healer stopped moving after hearing those words leak from the celestial plum blossom's mouth. He was so stunned that even his hand that was boiling the medicine so diligently had stopped. He wasn't the only one that was shocked, as I was just as shocked. He has the leaf of dragon's candle. The dragon's candle was a sacred herb that was extremely hard to acquire even if someone had a lot of money. It was often said that even one root of dragon's candle was capable of making a good chunk of the greatest medicines that were available in the world. And he offered that to him. It wasn't strange to hear that the Mount Hua sect had possession of dragon's candle. However, a precious thing was not something that should have been offered just to get me checked. Moreover, he even offered the leaves of dragon's candle. Doa, are you being serious right now? If it turns out that I am lying, I will bark like a dog in front of you. Even so, for a sect leader to bark like a dog is just. It wasn't something that a leader should ever say, but I guess it's more believable now that he said that. You piece of shit, you said that last time and you barked like a dog like it was nothing. Everyone froze instantly after hearing what the Immortal Healer just said. The Lord of the Mount Hua sect actually barked like a dog. Surely the Immortal Healer was joking right now, right? Thinking like that, I looked at the celestial plum blossom, only to see him standing there with an awkward expression on his face. Hey! There are kids watching. You idiot, you caused so much trouble that surely it won't get any worse. I thought for a second. Will Mount Hua be alright like this? Elder Shin, don't talk to me. Are you really okay with Mount Hua being like this? What's Mount Hua? I don't know what that is. My memories have been faint lately. Could it be that I have dementia? This old man wasn't normal either. He even used dementia as an excuse even though he's a ghost already. Can't believe this didn't work. Then if it turns out I was lying, I will step down as the Lord of the Mount Hua sect. My lord. The Swordmaster called out to the celestial plum blossom with utter shock on her face. shocked that he even bet his position as the lord of the sect. He was such a man that even bet the clan's treasure for a drinking game so. It was really hard to trust someone like him. After hearing the celestial plum blossom's words, the immortal healer looked at me again. I assumed that betting his position as the Lord of Mount Hua was enough to make the immortal healer believe in him. How about it? The immortal healer thought for a while. Is the dragon's candle really that valuable? Soon, he let out a sigh. I'm just going to check him and that's all I'm doing. Even if something is wrong with him, I'm not going to do anything about it. After musing by himself for a while, the immortal healer finally accepted the celestial plum blossom's request. Oh yes. That's enough. Sorry to interrupt, but what about my opinion? I'm never going to accept your requests ever again. Then I'll just have to come to you over and over again till you do. Just shut your mouth please. After speaking those words, the immortal healer reached out his hand towards me. Pull up your sleeve and lend me your arm. I couldn't help but hesitate at the immortal healer's words. I knew that the whole reason why we came here was because the celestial plum blossom knew about the chi of the Mount Hua sect that was swirling inside of me. However, I doubted if he could even figure out the condition of the chi inside of me. Moreover, if he really was able to figure everything out, I feared him being able to discover my demonic abilities as well. Lend him your arm. Elder Shin. The longer you hesitate, the more suspicious you look. I'll take care of the thing you are nervous about, so lend him your arm. I listened to Elder Shin's words and pulled up my sleeve and reached my arm out to the immortal healer. However, I hope you tell me what you are so nervous about as payment. Yes. The immortal healer grabbed my arm and slowly checked my pulse. Soon, a very small trace of chi came inside my body from the tips of the immortal healer's fingers that were touching my arm. I guess even if one was a healer, they had some amount of chi in them at least. Oh God! After touching my arm for a while, the immortal healer finally spoke in an extremely astonished tone. After hearing his words, I couldn't help but feel my mind go blank. You aren't just abnormal, but you are basically a walking dead. Chapter 69. The Walking Dead, 1, you are listening at novelfull.audio. The Walking Dead, 1, A Walking Dead. My mind blanked out after hearing the unexpected words that came from the immortal healer's mouth. He pressed on with a visibly serious expression. What the hell did you consume for this to happen? What do you mean by that? There are numerous kinds of chis inside of you, and they are all different. How are you still moving around in one piece? He'd nailed it dead on. I had consumed many kinds of chis, so I knew what he was talking about. I believed that he was talking about my demonic power, the power I got from my time at Sichuan, and the power I'd recently consumed from the treasure of Mount Hua. Is it really that big of a problem? There is no way that you don't know how problematic this is as a martial artist yourself. I'm more astounded by how you are still alive even after what's happened to you. Is it really that severe? I knew that the chi of a Taoist clan and that of the Gu clans didn't get along well together, but I thought I was doing a good job keeping them stable. Is it because of the beast that Elder Shin mentioned? It probably isn't that. What kind of a maniac would want to put two different chi in their body unless they want to kill themselves? But that wasn't my intention either, that's why he's astounded. That was my biggest concern. If two different chi flowed within the same body when they were completely opposite in nature, they would definitely and unceasingly collide. And damage my body during each and every collision that occurred. This only got worse as the rank of the chi increased. If I had the body of an average human, then I would have been disabled already. Maybe I took it too lightly. I'd taken it lightly because nothing happened to me. But, did that mean the beast Elder Shin was suppressing was the collisions that would damage my bod? That's not the case. It's not. Yes, to answer that healer, the beast is keeping you alive. What does that mean? That thing is suppressing the chi that is trying to rampage endlessly, even though it is also an explosive one itself. I couldn't understand what Elder Shin was saying at all. What the hell is going on in my body? I quickly asked the immortal healer. Then what should I do? What do you mean what should you do? Either take all of that thing out of your body or just continue to live like that and pray that your body doesn't explode. Pardon? What kind of? It wouldn't be strange if your body exploded at this moment right now. I can't just try to take it out myself recklessly. Even the immortal healer couldn't deal with this easily. ENV, I didn't call you a walking dead for no reason. You can die any moment, whether it could be when you are eating or when you are showering. You are in that kind of condition. A condition where it wouldn't be weird for me to die at any moment. It meant that the energy that was calm for now could act up any moment and kill me. I can't believe I had a ticking bomb inside me. I guess I'm guilty for thinking that everything was fine even after consuming all of that. But even so, the fact that I hadn't consumed them on purpose made it all the more frustrating to me. This is a bigger problem than I thought. The immortal healer then turned to the celestial plum blossom. I thought you told me to check him out because you knew. How was I supposed to know? You don't even know this when you were given the title of celestial plum blossom. I was able to see it briefly, so I came to you so that we could thoroughly examine it. While the two elderly men bickered in front of me, my mind remained a complicated mess. What should I do? I couldn't even think about the Juga Hyuk that was in front of me or the events that would occur in the future because I was in a spot where I could die at any moment. What do I do? I was still alive thanks to the mysterious thing that was inside my body, but I was informed that even that would go on a rampage if I used up too much chi, so it wasn't exactly safe either. And to think that Elder Shin was suppressing that thing. This is so goddamn complicated. Basically, there was a war raging inside my body. And all of it happened because of the unwanted energy I was forced to consume. I at least wouldn't have felt so frustrated if I'd consumed them willingly. While thinking so, I heard the immortal healer's voice. There is one way that you can live. Ha. No, since you are still alive, it's more correct to say that you can continue to live. May I ask what that is? I was a little hopeful after hearing him. The immortal healer responded with a serious expression. If the thing inside you can explode any moment, you can just seal off your abdomen. This is the matter of your body exploding which occurs starting from your abdomen, so if we seal it off now when a problem still hasn't occurred yet, you will be able to maintain your body. The immortal healer wasn't wrong. If I sealed my lower abdomen, the things inside my body would be destroyed with it, which would solve the problem. And I would be able to keep my life. However, I would die as a martial artist. I can't do that. It wasn't because I felt greedy for the chi and power I'd built up until now. But because I would die anyways if I sealed off my abdomen. Whether it was to the heavenly demon, or to the Murim Alliance. Shit. Why couldn't I ever get an easy option? Couldn't I ever get a safe option? You still don't have any intention to give up, huh? I guess it's fair considering martial artists value their abdomen more than their lives. It sounded stupid in some ways, but that was the case for most martial artists. The immortal healer looked at my expression and spoke. Judging by your expression, it seems like you have no intention of giving up your abdomen. If that is the case, then I have no other solutions for you aside from praying that you get lucky and your body continues to hold on like it has up until now. You told me that you would only check, but you already came up with a solution, Tay. You rotting piece of shit, I told you to screw off already. What a hassle. The immortal healer signaled with his hand pointing towards the door, telling us to get out if we were done listening. There is a patient here, if you are done, screw off. Still as cold as ever, you especially, Doa, fuck off. The celestial plum blossom put on a smile on his face and stood up. The plum blossom sword also tried to stand up to bow, but the celestial plum blossom signaled her not to with his hand. Rest well, I'll visit from time to time. Yes, Lord. It's rowdy when you come, so don't. I'll come next time, Tay. Fuck off. The celestial plum blossom went outside the door, and just as I was about to follow him, wait. I turned around at the voice and came face to face with Gu Ryungwa. She was looking at me with a visible tremble in her eyes. Ha! You are dying. What did you say? Are you dying? I said. Gu Ryungwa shouted. What was she suddenly on about? It had been so long since I'd seen her, so I didn't really know how to talk to her. Did she ask because she wanted me to die? Was our relationship really that bad? Get out of my sight, your presence alone disgusts me. Perhaps it really was that bad. I let out a sigh after being reminded of a memory that suddenly passed through my mind. It was something I'd definitely said. I looked at Gu Ryungwa and spoke. I think so. Why are you so calm? Should I be scared? I'm not dead yet. But they said you can die even tomorrow. But I'm still alive now. Gu Ryungwa's expression changed weirdly after hearing my words. Was it really that weird? Plus, why did Gu Ryungwa become so serious about it? I didn't think she had any affection left for me. It is indeed weird, since a kid that has never experienced death is saying all of this with a calm face. But I know that you sometimes act like an adult, but this is particularly severe. I'm hoping I can hear something related to this later. How can you be so sure that I have a story related to this? If not, then never mind. Sigh. Because of this pointless conversation, I even felt more tired. I let out a deep sigh and turned my focus and gaze back to Gu Ryungwa. I'm going back to the clan in a few days, and you have to come as well. I'm not going. You aren't. That shitty place, there's no way I'd want to go back. Alright, do what you want. After telling her that she can do whatever she wants, Gu Ryungwa's expression became even weirder. I already knew that she didn't want to go just by looking at her expression. You really aren't going to force me to go? You said you don't want to. Ha! What do you think father would say if I told him I couldn't bring you because you so stubbornly refused? Yeah, just like your thoughts, he wouldn't say anything about it. It would probably just end with him saying something like, I see. But the heavenly pill I would get as a reward though. Oh, I'd forgotten about that. Then again, if I got that now and consumed it, my body would probably be under more stress. There were already firecrackers inside my body, so wouldn't it be worse to add more to it? That was my first concern. And looking at Gu Ryungwa in the arms of the plum blossom sword made me think that there was no need for her to return to the clan. Mount Hua definitely felt more like a home to Gu Ryungwa than the Gu clan. That the heart of an older brother or something. Don't say things that'll give me goosebumps. I already had to worry about dying, the heart of a brother my ass. Just like my previous life, I decided not to care about it. You always say the opposite of what your heart feels. I lightly ignored Elder Shin and bowed to the immortal healer and the swordmaster. I locked gazes with Zhuge Hyuk in the process, but I decided to let him go for now. For now, that is. After coming outside the hut. The celestial plum blossom seemed to have already left because he wasn't here. Did he leave without me? I thought that I should also start leaving because it was going to become night soon, so I focused chi into my feet, but, wait, I don't know the way, huh? How strange. Those words came from the immortal healer after Gu Yangchen left the hut. It was strange. It was very strange. To see all those different kinds of chi in a boy's body when he wasn't even at the age of 20. Alongside the fact that the chi weren't exploding even though they were certainly roaring at each other. And even his behavior when he was listening to the immortal healer. I feel like I've seen those eyes before. His eyes had remained calm even after he was told that he could die at any moment. It was understandable for him to tremble in fear, but those eyes of his seemed to just calmly accept that fact. They were eyes that the immortal healer had definitely seen somewhere. But he couldn't remember where. Perhaps he really was getting old. The immortal healer turned to Gu Ryumwa. Child, what kind of person is your brother? Ha! At the sudden question from the immortal healer, Gu Ryumwa was dumbfounded. What kind of person was he? He was an older brother that was 1 year older. Gu Ryumwa had felt proud of her kind brother at first, but he'd suddenly changed. And, he was the person that saw the last moments of her mother. It happened when she was very young, so her memory was very faint, but she knew that Gu Yangchen was definitely there when it happened. With her father, Gu Qilan. Ryumwa. Gu Ryumwa grabbed the swordmaster's hand firmly, feeling nervous. Ahem, the immortal healer turned his head away after seeing that. He felt like he had asked something he shouldn't have. Then when and where did I see those eyes? He remembered. The immortal healer remembered the people that had the same eyes as the boy did. It happened so long ago that he'd forgotten about it. Very long ago, before he became famous for his healing abilities, he had been given the task of healing some people. The eyes of those people showed no emotions. They had seemed to have transcended the fear of death as they didn't seem to be affected by anything. And as if to prove that, they ended their own lives with those same eyes not long after. But why does that boy have the same eyes? The abyss. Those eyes were similar to the eyes of the people that survived the abyss. Asterisk 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 when I finally managed to make my way back to Mount Hua, the sun had already set. It's nighttime already, I didn't even get to eat dinner yet. When the celestial plum blossom found me, he apologized to me with a face that showed that he only just realized that he left me. He really forgot about me. Plus, when I asked about what to do with the chi of Mount Hua that was inside me, it's not like I can take the chi. So how about you just keep it pretending not to know about it since there doesn't seem to be another way around it? Was his sloppy response. Why even take me there in the first place then? The only thing I got from following him was that Zhuge Hyuk was the grandson of the immortal healer, and that I was a ticking bomb. My life. There was never anything easy for me, ever. Did I commit that many sins in my previous? Oh, I did, like a lot, sigh. I tried to use karma as an excuse to cope with my current situation, but some things just never went how I wanted them to. Like right now. What could possibly be going on right now? I was in a guest room that had been offered by Mount Hua. The escorts were probably nearby to keep watch, and the servants were probably also nearby. But what about you? It was an average-sized room that was neither small nor big. And in the middle of that room was someone who was setting up a blanket. I thought that it was a servant at first, but I couldn't mistake her for anyone else after noticing her unique hair color. What are you doing here? The person looked at me after hearing my voice. Then she tilted her head in confusion, wondering why I'd asked her that question. The one setting up a blanket was Nangung by Ah. Blanket, why are you setting it up? To sleep. Where? Here. Yeah. Together. Yeah. Why? Just, why?